We are on the record for hearings in the matters listed in the North Dakota Industrial Commission hearing docket for April 26, 2023. I am Stephen Nelson, hearing examiner for these hearings. We are at the hearing room for the Department of Mineral Resources, Oil and Gas Division, and it is 9 o'clock a.m. On the docket, the following matters will be continued or dismissed. Beginning on page 3, case number 29961 will be continued to June. Case number 29346 will be continued to June. Case number 29896 will be continued to May. Case number 29903 will be dismissed. On page 13, case number 29993 will be continued to June. Case number 29994 will be continued to June. Case number 29995 will be continued to June. Case number 29857 will be continued to June. Case number 29916 will be continued to May. Case number 30000 will be continued to May. Several cases will be heard out of order today to accommodate scheduling. Case 29952 will be heard immediately after case 29896. And case number 29843 will be heard immediately after case number 29958. The administrative docket starts on page 5 with case number 29962 and goes through case number 2 to page 16 with case number 30005. And it will include the supplemental docket with case number 29913. These cases will be heard in the next room with Michael Zisch. Audio recordings of the cases on the administrative docket will be placed on the Oil and Gas website by the end of the week. If you wish to appear in one of the matters on the administrative docket, please appear in the next room. If there is opposition to the matter, it will be brought back into this hearing room to be heard, and your statements and evidence will be taken. We will begin with case number 29951. In the matter of a hearing called on a motion of the Commission to consider the name change of the Squaw Gap Field and any associated pools in Mackenzie County, ND, and for such other and further relief as the Commission deems appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward? And I believe this is on a motion of the Commission, so I guess if we want any comments from Commission members.
Mr. Examiner, Lynn Helms, just a comment. This is upon the decision by the Department of Interior to change the name of Squaw Gap to Homesteaders Gap. And so we'll want to place those materials from Department of Interior and the USGS into the record.
All right, those materials will be included in the record. Are there any further comments in this matter? Seeing none, that will conclude the hearing in case number 29951. Moving on, case number 29952. In the matter of a hearing called on a motion of the Commission to consider the termination of the lease line 2560 acre space unit in the Charleston Bakken Pool described as sections 35 and 36, Township 154 North, Range 95 West, and sections 1 and 2, Township 153 North, Range 95 West, Mackenzie and Williams County, ND, and or alternatively establishing the south half of sections 35 and 36, Township 154 North, Range 95 West, and the north half of sections 1 and 2, Township 153 North, Range 95 West, Mackenzie County, ND, as a laydown lease line 1280 acre space unit in the Charleston Bakken Pool and such other relief as is appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota. Mr. Examiner, appearing in this case on behalf of PetroHunt, is my understanding that we were going to move this case 29952 down to immediately following 29896. I have common witnesses from PetroHunt appearing in this case and those subsequent cases.
Yes, my apologies. So
that's okay.
We'll push that. So we'll conclude that hearing or continue that hearing until
sure.
That further date or that further down on the docket.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to case number 29953, application of Hess Bakken Investments 2 LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Stanley and or Elger Bakken pools to establish two overlapping laydown 1920 acre space units described as section 1, Township 155 North, Range 92 West, and sections 5 and 6, Township 155 North, Range 91 West, and section 12, Township 155 North, Range 92 West, and section 7 and 8, Township 155 North, Range 91 West, Montreal County, ND, and authorize 7 horizontal wells to be drilled on each such unit or granting such other relief as may be appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Hesbachen Investments 2 LLC. I have 3 witnesses appearing telephonically in this case: Derek Abrahamson, Jacob Smith, and Aisha Keshemir. And they should be on the line now.
And Mr. Abrahamson, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Derek, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Derek Abrahamson, senior land negotiator, 1501 McKinney Street, Houston, Texas, 77010.
And Derek, have you previously testified before this commission?
I have.
And have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
I have.
And do you have familiarity with the land matters associated with these proposed spacing units?
I do.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Mr. Abrahamson be received as that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Derek, let's go ahead and go through your exhibits, beginning with the locator map, Exhibit 1.
Okay, this is a location map of Montreal County, Township 155 North, Range 91, and Range 92 West. In blue, you see the existing stand-up 1280 on the west side, the first one being sections 1 and 12. That's in Township 155 North, Range 92 West. Section 6 and 7 would be in Township 155 North, Range 91 West, and another 1280 stand-up in Sections 5 and 8. In green is the proposed 1920s, one being on the north side, consisting of Sections 1, 6, and 5, and one on the south side as a laydown consisting of Sections 12, 7, and 8.
Okay. And let's move on to Exhibit 2A, if you can take us through the working interest for that northernmost 1920.
Yeah, sure. This is the land plat, and in the blue we have the Hess-operated R.S. Thompson DSU with the Hess owns approximately 77% working interest, Lime Rock 6%, Alcazar 3%, and others 13%. In the orange, we have the in Section 6 and 7, the Hess-operated R.S. Evander A. Hess owns roughly 37%, Lime Rock 21%, with Hess and Alcazar roughly 10%. In the Hess Oil 7%, others 15%. And in yellow, we have in Sections 5 and 8, the Hess-operated stand-up R.S. Evander. Hess owns roughly 60%, Bearson 12.5%, OEC on estate 6%, Lime 6%, and others 15%. And the total proposed spacing on the northern 1920 would be Hibbix, or Hess would own roughly 59%, Lime Rock 11%, Alcazar 4%, Bearson 4%, and others 0.2%.
Okay. Then let's move on to 2B, that's southern 1920.
Okay, the same thing here. It's the south half of the 6th section as of laid out in 1920. And we have the R.S. Thompson again at Hess owns 77%, Lime Rock 6%, Alcazar 3%, others 13%. In the orange, the R.S. Evander A. Hess owns roughly 38%, Lime Rock 21%. The Hess Alcazar roughly 10%, the Hess Oil 7%, others 15%. And in the sections 5 and 8, on the stand-up 1280 in yellow is the R.S. Evander and Hess owns 61%, Bearson 12%. Always on the state 6%, Lime Rock 6%, and others 15%. And in the proposed laydown 1920, we have Hess owning roughly 59%, Lime Rock 11%, Alcazar 4%, Bearson 4%, others 22%.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. Abrahamson. I'd offer the land exhibits.
Land exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none, we'll move to Mr. Smith. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Jacob, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Sure. My name is Jacob Smith. I'm employed by Hess Corporation as a geologist. with a business address of 1501 McKinney Street, Houston, Texas 77010.
And Jacob, have you previously testified before this commission?
I have.
And have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
I have.
And are you familiar with the geology underlying the proposed spacing units?
I am.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Mr. Smith be received as that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Jacob, let's start with your exhibit number 3. If you can describe your structure map for us.
Sure. Exhibit 3 shows the location of the existing DSUs in blue and the requested 1920s in green. The top middle Bakken structure map is presented with a 50-foot contour interval showing that the formation is dipping to the southwest. Purple line 8A prime represents the location of the wells used in the next exhibit.
Okay, and let's move on to the cross-section, exhibit 4.
Exhibit 4 is a stratigraphic cross-section flattened on the top of the Bakken, showing that the targeted formations are present and continuous throughout the region.
Okay, I have no further questions for Mr. Smith, and I'd offer the geology exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none? Ms. Cashmere, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Aisha, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
So my name is Aisha Kashmir, employed by Hess Corporation as a reservoir engineer, located at 1501 McKinney Street, Houston, Texas 77010.
And have you previously testified before this commission?
Yes, I have.
And have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes.
Okay, and you have familiarity with the engineering-related matters associated with these spacing units?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Ms. Keshmir be received as that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Aisha, let's start with exhibit number 5. Can you take us through your proposed development plan for the northernmost 1920?
So Exhibit 5 shows the proposed 1920 development plan for Section 5, 6, and Section 1. The bold dashed lines are the proposed 7 wells, and all would be drilled in the Middle Bakken Formation.
Okay. And then let's move on to exhibit number 6.
Exhibit number 6 shows the proposed 1920 development plan for Section 7, 8, and Section 12. The same thing, the bold dashed lines are the proposed 7 wells, and they're going to be drilled in the Middle Bakken Formation as well.
Okay. And just to clarify, Aisha, will all of these wells be drilled from 3 pads? The way we've got it shown, it looks like it might be 4 pads.
Actually, it's a 3 pad, so the southern batch from the previous exhibit has 4 wells, 3 wells actually, and this one in the north, they're all going to be drilled from 1 pad, so total would be 3 pads.
Okay. Let's go ahead and move on to exhibit number 7. If you can take us through the reservoir data and the economics for the proposed wells.
Sure. Exhibit 7 shows the reservoir and economic summary for a single Middle Bakken well in Red Sky area. The expected EUR is around 780,000 barrels with 1.9% recovery factor. Economics were around at $62 WTI flat and 100% working interest. The expected NPV is around $6 million with 32% rate of return.
And Aisha, if the commission were to approve these laydown 1920s, is that going to prevent waste, protect relative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
I have no further questions for Ms. Keshmir. I'd offer the engineering exhibits and the gas capture plan affidavit.
The exhibits and affidavit are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Aisha, looking at your exhibit 5, or 6, I guess, the existing wells in the stand-up 1280s, you have a mix of Middle Bakken and Three Forks wells, correct?
Yes, that's correct. 2 Middle Bakken and 1 Three Forks.
And the center one is the Three Forks well?
Correct, yes.
And your proposed target is all Middle Bakken, so when you drill across those existing Middle Bakken wells, how do you plan to drill across them, and how do you plan to complete in proximity?
Most likely, we will be abandoning that well, the existing well, based on our economic evaluation. Those wells are making less than the threshold for a PNA well. So we were planning that we most likely would be PNA those 3 wells.
Would you do that before or after the drilling operations on these 1920s?
We will do it right before the drilling.
Okay, thank you.
Aisha, this is Bruce Hicks. When you're estimating your economic ultimate recovery, did you reduce the EUR due to the existing production?
Yes, I did apply a risk factor for depletion to account for depletion from the Middle Bakken well, especially.
What was that discount factor?
Sorry,
I'm sorry?
oh, it was around 20%.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none? Anything further in this matter, Mr. Mann?
No, Mr. Examiner, thank you.
And that will conclude the hearing in case number 29953. Moving on, case number 29954, application of Hesbakken Investments 2 LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Stanley and/or Elder Bakken pools to establish an overlapping 3840 acre space unit described as sections 1 and 12, Township 155 North, Range 92 West, and sections 5 and 6, 7, and 8, Township 155 North, Range 91 West, Montreal County, ND, and authorize one horizontal well to be drilled on such unit or granting such other relief as may be appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Hesbakken Investments 2 LLC. I have the same 3 witnesses testifying in this case.
All right. Mr. Abrahamson will swear you in one more time. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yeah.
And Derek, why don't you go ahead and take us through land exhibits beginning with the locator map, number 1?
Yeah, sure thing. Exhibit 1 is a location map of Montreal County. It's in Township 155 North, Range 91 and 92 West. In blue is the existing DSUs. All 3 of them are 1280 stand-ups on the west side. In Township 155 North, Range 92 West is a 1280 stand-up being sections 1 and 12. In the middle is Township 155 North, Range 91 West. It is another stand-up 1280 with section 6 and 7. And on the east side is another 1280 in Township 155 North, Range 91 West, being 5 and 8. And in the green outline is the requested 2840 DSU.
And then, Derek, on exhibit number 2, this is sort of a companion case to the previous case, asking for a 3840 for the lease line well between those 2 proposed 1920s. So I think we've already kind of gone through the underlying working interest. If you just want to touch on the working interest for the full proposed 3840.
Yep. So for the proposed 3840, we have Hess owning roughly 59%, Lime Rock 11%, Alcazar 4%, Pearson Oil 4%, and others with 22%.
Okay. And I have no further questions for Mr. Abrahamson. I'd offer the land exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none, Mr. Smith will swear you in one more time. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
And Jacob, I know it's probably duplicative of the last case, but if you just want to touch on the structure map briefly.
Yep. So this shows the existing DSUs in blue and requested 3840 in green. This is a top middle Bakken structure map with 50-foot contour interval showing that the formation is dipping to the southwest. Okay. And 8 to 8 ton will be the well to the next cross section.
And is this the same cross-section, exhibit number 4, that you've previously testified to?
Yes.
Okay. And same target, Middle Bakken?
Yeah. Yep. Flatten on the top of the bucket.
Sure. I have no further questions for Mr. Smith. I'd offer the geology exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none. Ms. Ketchumir, do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Aisha, let's go through exhibit number 5. If you can just describe your proposed development plan for this 3840.
Sure. Exhibit 5 shows the proposed 3840 development plan for section 567 and section 8112. The bold dashed line is the proposed well and will be drilled in the Middle Bakken formation.
Okay. And then moving on, is the reservoir data and the economics essentially the same as the previous case?
Yes, it's the same as the previous case.
Okay. And Aisha, in your opinion, if the commission were to approve this overlapping 3840 to allow the lease line or section line well between those proposed 1920s, in your opinion, is that going to prevent waste and protect relative rights?
Yes.
Okay, I move the testimony of I'd offer the engineering exhibits and the gas capture plan affidavit.
The exhibits and affidavit are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none. Anything further on this matter, Mr. Mann?
No, Mr. Examiner, thank you.
That will conclude the hearing in case number 29954. Case number 29955. Application of Hesbakken Investments 2 LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Antelope Sanish Pool to establish an overlapping 2560 acre spacing unit described as sections 12 and 13, Township 152 North, Range 95 West, and sections 7 and 18, Township 152 North, Range 94 West, Mackenzie County, ND, and authorize one horizontal well to be drilled on such unit or granting such other relief as may be appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Hesbakken Investments 2 LLC. I have the same land witness and geology witness. I believe I will have a different engineer testify in this case, though. Mr. Carson Noble.
Carson Noble?
Noble, correct.
All right. Mr. Abrahamson, do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Derek, let's go ahead and start with exhibit number 1. If you can take us through that exhibit, identify the proposed spacing unit.
Okay, this is a location map of Mackenzie County, North Dakota, and it shows Township 152 North, Range 95 and 94 West. In the blue is the existing 1280 DSUs. The northern one is the laydown 1280 consisting of sections 12 and 7, section 12 being in Township 152 North, Range 95 West, and then section 7 being in Range 94. Below that, in the blue, are two stand-up 1280s, one being section 13 and 24, and that's also going to be in 94 Range 94 West. That's in Range 95 West. And then in sections 18 and 19, you have another stand-up 1280, and that's in Range 94 West.
Okay. Let's move on to exhibit number 2. If you can walk us through the working interest in that proposed spacing unit and the underlying spacing units.
Okay, sure. So on the north side, you have the laydown 1280 being a Hess-operated and Lone Tree DSU consisting of sections 12 and 7. Hess owns approximately 59%. Working interest, Vitesse 14%, Northern 13%, and others 14%. In the yellow, in section 13 and 24, is an EOG-operated Hawkeye DSU. Hess owns approximately 13%, EOG 36%, Enerplus 18%, Davis Partners 9%, MBI Oil 7%, others 17%. And in the orange, consisting of sections 18 and 19, you have the Enerplus operated Bull DSU has done 0% in there, Enterprise owns 81%, and others are at 18%. The total for the proposed east-west leaf line well, 2560, you have Hess owning approximately 33%, Enterprise with 25%, EOG with 8%, Northern with 6%, Invitex with 7%, and others with 19%.
Derek, have you had communications with either of the other operators identified with respect to the proposed spacing and operatorship?
Yes. So first we contacted EOG, and they have no issues with us drilling this lease line well. And then we have had contact with Enterprise, and again, no concerns. We sent them over various anti-collision reports and other information, and they have no concerns. So they have no concerns.
Sure. I have no further questions that offer the land exhibits.
Land exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none, move on to Mr. Smith. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Jacob, why don't you go ahead and take us through exhibit number 3, the structure map?
Good thing. Exhibit sheet 3 shows the location of the existing DSUs in blue, the requested 2560 outlined in green. The top of the middle block construction map is presented with a 15-foot interval showing that the formation is dipping to the southwest and northeast as it rides along the strike of the plunging anticline that plunges southeast. And the 8A prime line represents the location of the wells used in the cross-section in the next exhibit.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and take us through the cross-section, exhibit 4.
Sure. Exhibit 4 is a cross-section flattened on the top of the Balkan, showing that the targeted formations are present continuous.
Okay, I have no further questions for Mr. Smith that offered the geology exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Jacob, this is Bruce Hicks. The Interplus wells that have been drilled on the west half of their spacing unit, do you know what those were completed in?
There were 2 Three Forks and 2 Middle Balkan.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from staff? Seeing none, we'll move on to Mr. Noble. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Carson, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Yes, Carson Noble, employed as a reservoir engineer by Hess Corporation. Business address is 1501 McKinney Street, Houston, Texas 77010.
And Carson, have you previously testified before this commission?
Yes,
And have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
yes,
And do you have familiarity with the engineering-related matters associated with the proposed spacing unit?
I do.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Mr. Noble be received as that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Carson, let's start with exhibit number 5. If you can just walk us through your proposed development plan for this spacing unit.
Sure. Exhibit number 5 shows the proposed 2560 development for sections 12, 7, and 13 and 18. The highlighted dashed line is the proposed lease line well, which will be drilled in the Middle Bakken Formation.
Okay. Let's move on to exhibit 6. If you can take us through the reservoir data and the economics for the proposed well.
Sure. Exhibit 6 shows the reservoir and economic summary for a single Middle Bakken well in the Hawkeye area. The expected EOR is about 770,000 stock tank barrels, which results in a 2.7% recovery factor. These econs were run at $62 per barrel WTI flat and 100% working interest. The expected NPV of this example well is $15,400,000 with a rate of return in excess of 100%.
Carson, in your opinion, would this spacing in this proposed development prevent waste and protect relative rights?
Yes.
Okay, I have no further questions that offer the engineering exhibits and gas capture plan affidavit.
The exhibits and affidavit are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Carson, the southernmost well here, the lease line well that you're proposing, where do you plan to, with respect to the section line, where's that plan to be located?
It's difficult to see here, but the section line kind of moves. It has a bit of a step up after the first couple of 1,000 feet heading from west to east. But both the heel and the toe will be located 50 feet north of the section lines, respectively.
Okay. And I believe Derek testified that there was already anti-collision reports done and provided to Enerplus regarding their wells. Do you know if those Enerplus wells enter the middle Bakken before they cross the section line?
The Middle Bakken wells do not. The Three Forks wells, I believe, do, just a little bit before the section line. But this was reviewed in the anti-collision report.
Okay. When you drill past those wells, are you able to steer around them sufficiently to avoid impacting those wells?
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Are there any further questions from commission staff?
Carson, on the lease line well and the planned infill wells in the south half of 12 and 7, are those all going to be drilled from that existing pad?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? Seeing none? Anything further in this matter, Mr. Mann?
No, Mr. Examiner, thank you.
All right, then that will conclude the hearing in case number 29955. Moving on, case number 29956, application of Hess-Bakken Investments 2 LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Manitou Bakken Pool to establish an overlapping 2560 acre spacing unit described as sections 2, 3, 10, and 11, Township 155 North, Range 94 West, Montreal County, ND, and authorize one horizontal well to be drilled on such unit, or granting such other relief as may be appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Hess-Bakken Investments 2 LLC. And Mr. Examiner, I think we're going back to the original three witnesses with Ms. Keshemir handling the engineering testimony.
All right. We will begin with Mr. Abrahamson. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Do.
Derek, let's start with exhibit number 1, if you can identify the proposed spacing unit for us.
Yeah, sure. Here we have a location map of Montreal County, Township 155 North, Range 94 West. On the west side, in the blue outline, is the existing 1280 DSUs, and there's a stand-up 1280 in sections 3 and 10, and also in the blue outline, existing stand-up 1280 in sections 2 and 11, and in the green is the proposed 2560 unit.
Okay. Let's move on to exhibit number 2, if you can take us through the working interest in the unit and the underlying units.
Okay, in the blue, consisting of sections 3 and 10, is the Hess-operated Ian Wright A. Hess owns approximately 88% working interest, XTO 5%, Collins and Young 2.5%, and others 4.5%. And in the yellow is the Hess-operated Ian Rice, consisting of sections 2 and 11. In that DSU, Hess owns roughly 93% working interest, Collins and Young 3%, others 4%. That brings the total of the proposed 2560 spacing unit that Hess would own approximately 91%, XTO 2%, Collins and Young 3%, and others 4%.
Okay, I have no further questions that offer the land exhibits.
Exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none. Mr. Smith, do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
All right, Jacob, let's go ahead and go through your structure map, exhibit 3.
Exhibit 3 shows the existing DSUs in blue, requested 2560 in green. On the top of the middle Bakken structure map is presented with a 15-foot or 50-foot contour interval showing that this formation is dipping to the south. And the purple line, 8A prime, is the location of the wells used in the next cross-section.
Okay, and let's move on to exhibit number 4, the cross-section.
Yep, this cross-section is flattened on the top of the Bakken, showing that targeted formations are present continuous throughout the region.
Okay, I have no further questions. I'd offer the geology exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Jacob, I'm looking ahead at the next exhibits, but it would appear that the intended target here is the Three Forks, correct?
Yes.
Is that the upper Three Forks, or where in the Three Forks are you planning to target?
Yeah, 3 Forks 1.
Okay. Your exhibit 4, your cross-section, would you mind identifying your target on there? It looks like, I just want to make sure it's visible on the cross-section. It looks like the Three Forks is cut off.
Yeah. Say that again, please.
So on your exhibit 4, you have the Three Forks 1 top near the bottom of your cross-section there. Could you identify what your intended drilling target is? Is it visible on the remaining cross-section?
Yeah, it'll be, so the Three Forks 2 isn't on there. Just below it looks like it got cut off, but we target mostly the upper half, the Three Forks.
You got a rough idea about how far below the top of the Three Forks you target?
A lot of time it's about 25, 30 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none, we'll move on to Ms. Keshemir. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Aisha, let's start with exhibit 5, and if you can walk us through your proposed development plan for this spacing unit.
So Exhibit 5 shows the proposed 2560 development plan for Section 2, 3, and Section 10, 11 in East Nelson area. The bold dashed line is the proposed well, and it will be drilled in the Three Forks formation, Three Forks 1 formation.
Okay. Let's move on to exhibit number 6. Can you summarize the reservoir data and the economics?
Exhibit 6 shows the reservoir and economic summary for a single Three Forks well in East Nelson area. The expected EUR is around 740,000 hectares with 1.7% recovery factor. Economics were run at $62 WTI, flat and 100% working interest. The expected NPV is around $8 million with 87% rate of return.
And Aisha, in your opinion, would this proposed spacing for this lease line well prevent waste and protect relative rights?
Yes.
Okay, I have no further questions. I'd offer the engineering exhibits and the gas capture plan affidavit.
The exhibits and affidavit are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none. Anything further in this matter, Mr. Mann?
No, Mr. Examiner, thank you.
That will conclude the hearing in case number 29956. Moving on, case number 29957, application of Hesbach Investments 2 LLC for an order regarding final cutting and capping of casing on plugged and abandoned wells operated by Hesbach Investments 2 LLC as an exception to NDAC 43020315, 43020334, and 43020334.1, or granting such other relief as may be appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Hesbach Investments 2 LLC. I have two witnesses appearing in this case. Both are present in the hearing room, Lisa Hokinson and Derek Sen.
Ms. Hokinson, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
And Mr. Examiner, just briefly before we kind of go into the witness testimony, I just want to kind of explain or kind of reiterate what Hess is asking for in the application. they've got, this relates to plugging and abandonment procedures where they've got abandoned wells that are located on multi-well pads where there will continue to be active and producing wells. The procedure that they have, I think, Hess's opinion, it's safer and more efficient and allows for the proper P&A procedure in a way that won't interfere with the existing wells and also be safe. The issue that we have, and I guess the relief that we're asking for, is with respect to certain of the commission rules, 430203, 34, and 34.1. With respect to 34, I think currently the casing, it must be capped 3 feet below the surface. This procedure, as Ms. Hokanson will kind of explain, it won't meet that 3-foot threshold, and we'll explain why. And then with respect to 34.1, that relates to reclamation and requires within a year that a site be reclaimed after you've P&A'd a well. Obviously, if you've got these wells located on multi-well pads where there are still active and producing wells, we won't be able to fully reclaim the site. And then one other issue with that, with this procedure, with these wells properly plugged and abandoned, don't really feel it's really appropriate for those to kind of remain on abandoned status, with respect to like bonding. So that's the other thing. And with that, I think maybe we'll just move on to the witness testimony, walk through the exhibits, and then address any questions that the commission staff might have.
Wade, before you get into testimony, I just
Yeah.
want to point out that we did have a couple advertisement problems with Billings and
Divide, I believe.
Divide counties, so we will have to continue the case to the next month until we get proper advertisement.
Understood,
Yeah.
and that's fine. Thank you. And Ms. Hokanson is my first, you swore her in already?
Sure, yeah.
Okay. And Lisa, can I have you state your name for the record and just maybe spell your last name?
Yes, Lisa Hokanson, Hokanson.
And Lisa, who do you work for?
I work for Hess Corporation,
And what's your position with Hess?
Regulatory Subsurface Advisor.
Okay, and do you have your business address?
Yes, it's 3015 16th Street Southwest in Minot, North Dakota, 58701.
And Lisa, have you previously testified before this commission?
I have not.
Can you just briefly walk us through your educational background and relevant work experience?
Yes, I graduated from Montana Tech with a petroleum engineering degree. I've worked in the industry for 22 years with several different operators. First 19 years as a production engineer, and the last 3 specializing in plug and abandonment work.
Okay. And Lisa, you are familiar with the process that we're going to be discussing today with respect to plug and abandoning these wells?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Examiner, I'd move the testimony of Ms. Hokanson be received as that of an expert in this case.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
Okay. So, Lisa, let's go ahead. If I can have you walk us through what the procedure would be when you are looking at plugging and abandonment on multi-well pads where there are active wells. If you can use the exhibits and kind of walk us through that process, starting
Okay.
with Exhibit
So,
1.
yep, on Exhibit 1, we will continue to plug all of the wells according to our NDIC procedures that we have had prior approval on. And then when you look, we've got several pictures of our well heads here. And what we're proposing is that we remove that upper portion of the wellhead and all of the wing valves. And then we will install caps on the wing valves and then a cap on the top there, where we'll also we'll weld the well name, file number, well status that definitely identifies each of these wells. So when you come up to them, after we're done with that, we'll install some barriers or bollards to help protect all of that above ground wellhead equipment until the pad is fully reclaimed.
Okay. Let's move on to Exhibit number 2 then. Is that sort of like an example of a location where you may sort of employ this procedure?
Yes, so this is kind of a pretty typical pad that we have. You can see the green dots are our well heads, and then we have like our flow lines clearly marked there. You can see that those flow lines come quite close to the closest well heads. So we've got electrical lines, flow lines, and communication cables in between each of those well heads.
Then let's move on to exhibit number 3. Can walk
Okay.
us through that.
And this is, again, showing very similar to what we did on the last one. You can see the wellheads, you can see the pumping units. We've got above-grade flow lines there that almost go to the next pumping unit. So our wellheads are 33 feet between wellheads, but we sometimes are only 5 to 6 feet before it reaches the next well. And these wellheads are often located within fill.
And then finally, exhibit number 4. Can you explain that exhibit for us?
Yep, this is a cross-section of our well pads that are in fill. And this, gives an example of where those well heads are at. You can see how much fill is there in some cases, and what it would take for us to dig down into those, And keep in mind that we do still have those communication cables, flow lines, everything on an active pad.
And I think Derek might kind of touch on this a little bit more, sort of, kind of why we're using this procedure, why we need to. But primarily, that kind of covers the process with respect to the P&A.
Yes.
Okay. And really the relief that we really need is relief from the 3 feet cap, like cut and cap 3 feet below the subsurface primarily.
Yes, we will continue to bring our cement to surface and have it right below where we would cap the top of the wellhead.
Okay. That's all the questions I have at this point for Ms. Hokinson, and I'd offer the exhibits 1 through 4.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Lisa, this is David Tabor. Using your exhibit 1, where you show your picture of your wellhead there, and it states well name, file number, well status, is that, well, first off, what's the height of what that would be after you bolt that on or add that to the wellhead?
So you can see that the top flange is just at about surface, so that would give us approximately 18 inches above ground.
Is Hess proposing to have that of like a bright color or something like that so truckers and so on can notice that as soon as they come on location, including your pumper operators?
Yes, however, the bollards, the road barriers that we would put in front and behind that will be, I think, a little more obvious, so that somebody cannot drive through that location and protect it.
And then I'm assuming that system would be welded and so on and done off the pad and brought on and simply bolted on the location to prevent the
Yes,
concerns
so-
that Hess has?
Yes, they'll be done prior to it, so when the rig is there, they'll be able to install it immediately after the plugging job.
And as far as a well status, does Hess have any concerns with a particular status, or they would be open to whatever that status the commission deems?
I believe that we're open to whatever that status is. We would ask that, that we stay within good standing as we have, completed the plug and abandonment work.
And then if you go to your exhibit 2 showing your pad layout, just so your standard pad, I guess I could state, is this the procedure that Hess would use for all wells until every well on that pad is in an abandonment or needing to be plugged and abandoned, or at some point would they move on and do the standard cut and cap and dig down and so on?
We would want to do the same process throughout on any multi-well pad until we come to the last well that is on that pad.
So it would be this way until all wells are done on the pad?
Yes.
Okay. And as far as a secondary pressure monitoring or being able to check, does Hess intend to incorporate any gauges of any sort to see if there is a leak or a situation comes up?
That is not what we proposed. However, I do believe that we're open to that.
Thank you.
Lisa, the flow line infrastructure on Exhibit 2 that's between the pumping units, when a well is plugged, will some of that be dismantled?
We will have to flush all of the lines, but we will not dig down and remove them until final reclamation.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Exhibit 2, like, we'll look at the bottom set of wells. What you're showing us there, I assume, is communication lines and flow lines? And those are above ground?
Okay, point me where you're looking again.
Just the bottom set of wells,
Yes,
and then you have the little fingers coming off what I assume is a manifold type setup. And
Yes.
If you plug some of those wells, will that flow line be dismantled back to that manifold, or will it just remain in place?
it would remain in place, so we do have some surface flow lines. Those will be removed. It's the underground stuff that we're proposing not to remove.
So anything that's
Until-
above ground, you would remove as much as you could?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Lisa, when you return for your final reclamation, what additional remaining work is yet to be done then?
So I'm going to defer to Derek on that,
Okay,
as he's the reclamation.
that'll work.
Lisa, on your exhibit, 1, you're indicating file status, the well status. Will that be as we suggest, or do you have a status in mind?
That would be what the NDIC suggests.
Yeah. And is this actually sticking up, or is it just welded on the top?
No, we proposed that we actually would take sheet metal, weld it, and then it would be welded onto that cap so that when you walk up to it, that it's very visible,
Okay.
especially with those bollards.
And I was unsure about your barriers. What are you suggesting? Cement Jersey barriers? Or are you gonna put cement poles in around it, or?
The Jersey barriers that, kind of our typical road dividers.
Okay, likely we would require some type of sundry if this is approved that would give us, a better idea of what you're proposing, but, okay, thank you. The other thing is, Wade talked about bonding. Have you got a suggested bond and how they should be handled in the future?
I believe that we've been, that we're open to, what the NDIC suggests. I know that some number less than what our current bonds are, in the neighborhood of 5,000 to 10,000 has been discussed.
5 to 10 per well, or a blanket bond of 5 to 10?
I believe that was per well.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none, we move on to Mr. Sam. Please raise your right hand and make sure your mic is on. Yeah. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Derek, can I have you state your name and maybe spell it as well for the record?
Yep, Derek Senn, S-E-N-N.
Okay. And Derek, who do you work for?
I work for Hess Corporation.
And what's your position with Hess?
I am the Asset Retirement Team Lead.
Okay. And do you know your business address?
Yes, 3015 16th Street Southwest, Minot, North Dakota.
Have you previously testified before this commission?
No.
Okay. Can you go ahead and briefly give us your educational background and relevant work
Yep.
experience?
So I graduated from the University of North Dakota with a degree in geological engineering. I've been a licensed professional engineer for more than 20 years. I spent the last 11 years working in North Dakota in the oil and gas industry, the last 3.5 with Hess, working on asset retirement. Prior to that, I worked for a midstream company as an environmental advisor, covering operations in North Dakota and throughout the Midwest.
Okay. And Derek, are you also familiar with the sort of plugging procedure that's been discussed and reclamation of the pads?
Yes.
I'd move the testimony of Mr. Sen be received as that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Derek, you kind of heard Lisa walk through the procedure. Can you, and you can use and identify any of the existing exhibits, but maybe explain for us why Hess feels it's kind of necessary and appropriate to employ this procedure as opposed to like the traditional that complies with the existing regs?
Yeah, as we were kind of working through some of our earlier, Bakken multi-well abandonments and figuring out our reclamation and demo process, we kind of started running into some issues with just how close equipment is to each other. And kind of some safety concerns and other logistical issues with, using the process as the rule is currently written. Obviously, excavating on an active pad is not something that we typically do. It creates some strike hazards with heavy equipment with the excavator on site. Also, as closely spaced as these Bakken wells are, there's some undermining concerns with the nearby wells. So basically, to get around the undermining issues means we have to do our work in a trench box. That starts to bring up another set of safety issues, means you're working in a confined space. You've got hazardous atmosphere concerns at that point. Also, another concern that we have is the current process would require us to do hot work, right next to operating wells, torch cutting and welding the cap on. So obviously we'd be doing that work, approximately 30 to 35 feet from an operating well. And even current NDIC rules, I think it's, the rule is you have to be any ignition source has to be 150 feet away from an operating well. So obviously we would be kind of working outside of that current rule. And then as you can see in Exhibit 4, on some of these pads where we have significant fill that the wells are sitting on, it becomes, extremely difficult, if not impossible, to be able to do that cut and cap at the 3 feet below final grade as the rule is written. So.
And then just to follow up, I believe was Mr. Suggs had a question with respect to the final reclamation. Can you cover that?
Yeah, so final reclamation, we would, at that point, we'd have met with the landowner, we'll know the reclamation plan, all the final contours of what the site's gonna be taken to. So at that point, we can put together a plan to cut and cap all the wells at the required depth at that time, weld that final plate on the wellhead, and then go about our normal reclamation at that time.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. Sen.
Are there any questions from commission staff?
Derek, with respect to that final work, grading the pad would be typically part of your normal reclamation costs, but the additional cut and cap needs, how much do you anticipate that to add to your reclamation costs that would typically be done during plugging operations?
I think overall, our final reclamation cost would be the same as if, well, it would be slightly lower to temporarily cap the wells, because we wouldn't be cutting and capping wells twice. So it would be a slight reduction in overall cost, but it would be a minimal change in cost. It's more of the safety issues and having guys in, confined spaces and working around hazardous atmospheres and, like flammable environments that are the main concerns.
So the final cut and capping during the reclamation part doesn't add significant
No.
cost to the operation at that point?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Derek, I think I heard you say, I just wanted to confirm that, so when you cut and cap, you will be welding a new plate onto the well at that time?
Yep. At that point, I'll go to the same cap that we've traditionally used.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
there any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none, as Mr. Hicks mentioned, this case will need to be continued to the May docket. Anything further beyond that, Mr. Rand?
No, Mr. Examiner, thank you.
We're now continued to the May docket until, all right, anything further in this matter? Hearing none, that will conclude this case will be continued to the May docket, case number 29957. Let's take a 10-minute break. The time is 10 o'clock. We'll meet back here at 10:10. and we are back on the record. The time is 10:13 a.m. Move on to case number 29958, application of Neptune Operating LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Pronghorn Bakken Pool to establish 2 overlapping 1920 acre space units described as sections 5, 8, and 17, and sections 20, 29, and 32, Township 150 North, Range 101 West, Mackenzie County, ND, and authorize 2 horizontal wells to be drilled on each such unit or granting such other relief as may be appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Neptune Operating LLC. I have 3 witnesses appearing telephonically, Alan White, Brian Lucero, and Josh Lackner.
All right. Mr. White, can you hear me?
I guess I gotta reconnect.
Okay.
All right, we're ready to go, Alan.
Okay, we're here. We're all here.
All right, Mr. White, can you hear me?
I can.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Alan, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Yes, my name is Alan White. I am Vice President of Land for Kraken Resources. Our address is 9805 Katy Freeway, Suite 300, Houston, Texas, 77024.
And Alan, have you previously testified before this commission?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and had you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and are you familiar with the land matters associated with the proposed spacing units?
I am.
Okay, and Alan, just briefly before we get into your exhibits, you indicated that you're employed by Kraken. This case is on behalf of Neptune Operating LLC. Can you just briefly address the affiliation between Neptune and Kraken?
Sure. Yeah, Neptune is the entity that is operating assets that were acquired recently. So it's just the operating name or operating company that will be operating the assets that we recently acquired from Bolin.
Sure. And then let's go ahead and get into the exhibits. If you can take us through the L1, the locator map.
Yep. Exhibit L1 is a regional locator map of the Pronghorn Field. Exhibit L2 is a depiction of the proposed 1,920 acre spacing units comprising of section 5, 8, and 17. I have a allocation factor breakdown of each of the 2 units that are going to be comprised to create the overlapping 1,920 acre unit. And you will see the Kraken working interest is 82.94% in the proposed unit. Kraken operates both, all 3 of the DSUs that are being combined to on this particular case. If you flip over to Exhibit L3, it is the overlapping 1,920 acre spacing unit to the south of the previous slide, being sections 20, 29, and 32. You'll see Kraken's working interest allocation in this proposed DSU is 86.51%. You'll also see the pad, the perforated lines on these 2 plats depict the proposed wells that we are asking for here.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. White, and I'd offer the land exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none, we'll move on to Mr. Lucero. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Brian, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
My name is Brian Lucero. I work for Kraken Oil and Gas as their geology manager. Our address is 9805 Katy Freeway, Suite 300, Houston, Texas 77024.
And Brian, have you previously testified before this commission?
Yes, I have.
Have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes, sir.
Okay, and do you have familiarity with the geology underlying the proposed spacing units?
I do.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Mr. Lucero be received as that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Brian, let's start with your structure map. Can you kind of walk us through that exhibit?
Exhibit G1 is a structure map based on the top of the Middle Bakken Formation, 50-foot in this case, 10-foot contour interval showing dip roughly to the east. It also includes the location of our type well.
Okay. Why don't we go ahead and move on to that type log. Take us through that exhibit.
Yes, sir. The type log is the NIGARD number 29-8, and it shows representative log through the Middle Bakken Formation.
Okay, I don't have any further questions for Mr. Lucero. I'd offer the geology exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none, we'll move on to Mr. Lochner. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Josh, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Sure. My name is Joshua Lochner. I work as a senior reservoir engineer for Kraken Resources, and the address is 9805 Katy Freeway, Suite 300, in Houston, Texas 7024.
And have you previously testified before this commission?
I have.
Have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
I have.
And are you familiar with the engineering-related matters associated with these proposed spacing units?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Mr. Lochner be received as that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Josh, let's start with E1. If you could just describe for us how you would plan to drill and complete any proposed wells in the spacing unit.
Sure. Exhibit E1 is the lateral wellbore schematic for a proposed 15,000-foot well. It shows our four-string drilling program, which is composed of a conductor, surface, intermediate casings, and a production liner, and outlining the completion methodology, which is going to be a plug-and-perf frac at roughly 167-foot spacing for the beach stage.
Okay. Let's move on then to E2. If you could walk us through what your proposed plan of development would be for each of these spacing units.
Exhibit E2 is our proposed development diagram showing the two proposed D20 DSUs outlined in yellow. We are proposing four 15,000-foot wells, two going north, two going south, drilled from a central location. And those wells are identified with the green dash line. The northern two in section 17, 8, and 5, and the southern two, sections 20, 29, and 32.
Okay. Let's move on to E3. If you could walk us through the reservoir data.
Exhibit E3 is the reservoir data for our proposed DSUs. The Middle Bakken thickness is between 25 and 35 feet in this location, and the oil in place per section is 6.5 million barrels of oil. So with a recovery factor of 3 to 4%, we are estimating an EOR per well of 725,000 barrels.
Okay. Let's move on to E4, if you can summarize the economics for us.
Exhibit E4 is the economic exhibit for a proposed development. Considering the EUR of 725,000 barrels of oil and a CapEx of roughly $10.5 million, we ran economics at a $70 flat oil price and $3 flat gas price, which resulted in an NPV of $8.1 million and an IRR of 80%.
Josh, in your opinion, if the spacing is approved for this development, would that prevent waste, protect relative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
I have no further questions. I would offer the engineering exhibits and the gas capture plan affidavit.
The exhibits and affidavit are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Josh, on exhibit E2, it looks like you have a total of 4 wells planned for that 1280 in the middle.
That is somewhat correct. We're not planning for the 1280.
You're
You mean on the
not,
west side?
I'm talking about the 1280 only on the west side.
Okay, on the west side, yes, those wells are already drilled.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Josh, this is Bruce Hicks. I noticed that on your exhibit E4, you've got gas connected to One Oak. These wells, the Bowline wells, there were a number of them that were connected to the Hay Butte gas plant, correct?
I'm not sure.
Okay, do you know if that Hay Butte gas plant is operating now?
I don't know.
Okay, but all of your wells are gonna be tied to One Oak.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none? Anything further on this matter, Mr. Mann?
No, Mr. Examiner, thank you.
That will conclude the hearing in case number 29958. Now we will jump to case number 29843. Application of Kraken Operating LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Hebron-Bakken Pool, Williams County, ND, to establish 2 overlapping stand-up 1440-acre space units described as all of Section 34 and the west half of Section 35, Township 156 North, Range 104 West, and all of Sections 3 and 10 and the west half of Sections 2 and 11, Township 155 North, Range 104 West, and all of Sections 15, 22, and 27, and the west half of Sections 14, 23, and 26, Township 155 North, Range 104 West, and authorize 1 horizontal well to be drilled on each such unit, or granting such other relief as may be appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Kraken Operating LLC. And Mr. Examiner, I have the same 3 witnesses testifying in this case.
All right, Mr. White, do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
All right, Alan, let's start with exhibit number L1, if you can walk us through the land exhibit.
Yep. Exhibit 1 is just a regional locator map of the Hebron field. If you flip over to Exhibit L2, it depicts the northern DSU that we are proposing here. It's a 1,440-ish acre DSU comprising west half 35, section 34, 156, 104, and west half section 2 and 11, and all of section 3 and 10 of 155, 104. You will see a depiction of the allocated value of each of the DSUs here, whereas Kraken owns a 43.16% working interest. I would like to state that we are currently in communications with the largest non-owner in this area and in these units to develop this acreage mutually and agreeable. So far, they have not indicated they have any objection to this, and with their interest and or support, this would be well exceed the majority threshold to operate these wells. If you turn over to Exhibit L3, it depicts the southern DSU, comprised of west half, Section 14, 23, and 26 of 155, 1 and 4, as well as all of Section 15, 22, 27. You will see the breakdown of the allocation here for these DSUs, whereas Kraken owns a 46.43% working interest. Again, same non-op owner. In this unit, we are in communication with that own in the northern unit. And I would like to mention that Kraken operates the majority of the DSUs along this comprise the overlapping units.
Sure. I have no further questions for Mr. White, and I would offer the land exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
First name?
Mr. White.
Alan?
Yes.
Sorry, Alan. Lynn Helms here. We are in receipt of a letter from the Bureau of Land Management regarding some unleased Indian minerals in your proposed spacing unit. Are you aware of that letter? And
I am not aware of the letter, but we are in the process of finalizing the leasing in there, in Section 34. Whereas we have leases out, and I think we have gotten letters back from 50% of one tract, and we're waiting on letters for 50% or the majority of the other tract right now. But we have taken the steps to lease that acreage and intend on having that leased before we conduct any operations out here.
all right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none. Mr. Lucero, do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Brian, let's start with G1, if you can walk us through the structure map.
Sure thing. G1 is a structure map based on the top of the Middle Bakken Formation, this time on a 50-foot contour interval showing dip roughly to the southeast, and again, it shows the location of our type well.
Okay, and let's move on to G2, your type log.
Yes, sir. G2 is our type log, the full 35-2, showing a representative log across the Middle Bakken Formation.
I have no further questions for Mr. Lucero. I'd offer the geology exhibits.
Exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none. Mr. Lochner, do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
And Josh, let's start with E1, and with respect to these proposed spacing units, just explain how you would drill and complete the wells.
Good thing. Exhibit E1 is the lateral wellbore schematic for the proposed well. It outlines our four-string drilling program with the conductor casing, service casing, intermediate casing, and production liner, which will be used for our plug-and-perf completion methodology, which will involve a stage spacing of roughly 167 feet per stage.
Okay. And moving on to E2, if you could describe for us how you would intend to develop the proposed spacing units.
Exhibit E2 is the proposed development diagram. Each of the 1440 DSUs are outlined in blue, with the proposed well represented by the green dashed lines. So it's not necessarily drawn to scale. In reality, the proposed wells are drilled further to the west, slightly closer to the state line than what appears on the graphic here. But it is generally representative. We plan to drill both wells from the central location between sections 10 and 15 and develop the wells at the same time.
Okay, and let's move on to E3, if you could take us through the reservoir data.
Exhibit E3 is the reservoir data. The oil gravity for the Middle Bakken Formation is 41.5 degrees API, and with a thickness of 30 to 40 feet and a porosity of 5 to 7%, and an oil in place of 6 million barrels of oil. We estimate an EUR of 630,000 barrels per well for this development.
Okay, and let's move on to E4, if you could summarize the economics for us.
Exhibit E4 is the well economic summary for the proposed 1440 DSUs. Considering the 630,000 EUR and an initial investment of $10.5 million per well, we estimate an NPV of $4.5 million per well and a project IRR of 97% with a payout in just under 2 years.
Okay. And Josh, in your opinion, would establishment of these proposed spacing units prevent waste, protect correlative rights, prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
I would.
Okay. I have no further questions. I'd offer the engineering exhibits and the gas capture plan affidavit.
The exhibits and affidavit are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Joshua, do you know approximately how far from the west boundary these wells are proposed?
Yes. Our plan is 800 west line.
Josh, you cut out. Can you repeat that?
Sorry, yes. It's, our proposal is 800 feet from the west line for both wells.
Thank you.
Josh, it looks like this area was originally developed on 960-acre stand-up spacing units, correct?
Yeah, I think so,
Okay.
which is 2 sections.
Yeah, well, it's like 2.5 or 2 1/4 or whatever, because it's splitting that one section, or the you're not drilling, you don't have 1280s here. So anyway, my question is the 960 that would be equivalent of 3 and 4, or sorry, 3 and 34. That 960 doesn't have an original well on it, correct?
That's correct.
Is there any intent to put a well on that spacing unit?
Yes, based on our current spacing, we believe that we can fit 2 wells to the east of our proposed well in section 10, 3, and 34. So this would be 2 wells in the 2-section spacing unit. And one of them would be a lease line, and we intend to work with Ford, who is the neighboring operator, in the development of this future project to try to come to an agreement and see if we can make it work with the different levels of interest that we have.
So would you have that, at least one of those wells, the well drilled on that 960-acre spacing unit, that it would include 3 and 34 prior to the drilling of the 1440 well?
Not prior to the drilling of the 1440.
Do you have any idea what the timing would be between drilling the 1440 well and the rest of the drilling on that 960?
I can't say for certain on the timing, but I think it would probably be at least a few years.
Would you be able to provide an exhibit that would indicate what your additional development in the sections would look like?
Absolutely.
Okay, please do so. Thank you.
Josh, this is Bruce Hicks. I just wanted to point out that, you know, typically we would want these stacked 1920s or the 3 mile laterals anyway, within the same township. I realize that we've got Oasis laydown spacing unit to the north and a Kraken one to the south. Do you know if those 2.5 mile lateral laydowns are going to be further developed on laydown units?
Well, I know that the Kraken, sorry, my echo. Okay. I know that the Kraken laydown units are currently being drilled at the moment. I can't speak necessarily for the northern laydown though.
Okay, but you indicated that Oasis was on board and is supporting you in this matter, is that right?
Not in this particular exhibit, but our plan would be to work with them in the future development of the sections 3 and 34, the 2 mile standalone development.
Typically, and maybe you already know this, but typically the commission would not want to space a 3 mile lateral across where you have a 2 mile lateral base unit that has not been drilled yet. If we had a stipulation that you had to drill that base spacing unit across 3 and 34 prior or at the same time as this 3 mile lateral, would you be opposed to that?
We could make that happen, I believe.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions from staff? Seeing none, Mr. Mann, there was a request for a supplement regarding additional development. What kind of time did your client need for that?
Josh, how long you need to put that together? Is a week sufficient?
A week will be more than sufficient.
Wednesday, May 3rd.
Yep.
The record will remain open until Wednesday, May 3rd for that supplement. I guess before we close, do you have any objection to making that BLM letter part of the
No
record?
objection.
And did you want to make any comments or?
No, I think it's been addressed.
All right, and that will be made part of the record. Anything further in this matter, Mr. Mann?
No, Mr. Examiner.
Then that will conclude the hearing in case number 29843. Go back here to case number 29959, application of Oasis Petroleum North America LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Squires and/or Bull Butte Bakken pools, Williams County, ND, to establish 2 overlapping stand-up 1920 acre space units described as section 17, 20, and 29, Township 156 North, Range 102 West, and Section 32, Township 156 North, Range 102 West, and Sections 5 and 8, Township 155 North, Range 102 West, and authorize 3 horizontal wells to be drilled on each such unit, establishing 2 overlapping 3840 acre space units described as Sections 16, 17, 20, 21, 28, and 29, Township 156 North, Range 102 West, and Sections 32 and 33, Township 156 North, Range 102 West, and Sections 4, 5, 8, and 9, Township 155 North, Range 102 West, and authorize 1 horizontal well to be drilled on each such unit, or granting such other relief as may be appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Oasis Petroleum North America, LLC. I will have 3 witnesses testifying in this case telephonically: Nicole Meredith, Randy Lambert, and Andrew McLean, and I need to contact them now.
Okay.
Nicole? Yeah, are you guys, all right, hang on, we're live here.
Okay.
And Mr. Examiner, if I may, before you swear in the witnesses, with respect to this case 29959, there's multiple requests in here, and one of them in part 2 was for the establishment of 2 overlapping 3840s. The last 3840 consisting of sections 32 and 33, 156, 102, and then 4, 5, 8, and 9, 155, 102. Oasis had submitted a request to continue the case with respect to that particular spacing unit. We are now going to just go ahead and withdraw the request as to those lands, just that single 3840, and request to go forward with the remainder of the case. So Oasis will be bringing a application at a later date for that 3840 that we're withdrawing at this time, so.
Okay. And to be clear, was that different case numbers that we were withdrawing at this time, or?
No, it's all within 29959. Their request includes multiple proposed spacing units, 1920s and 3840s, so.
Okay. This is withdrawn. Is there any comment from the commission on that withdrawal? No? All right. Then we can move on to your first witness.
Yeah, Nicole Meredith.
All right. Ms. Meredith, do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Nicole, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Yes, Nicole Meredith, landman at Oasis Petroleum, a subsidiary of Cord Energy. Business address is 1001 Fannin, Suite 1500, Houston, Texas 77002.
And Nicole, have you previously testified before this commission?
I have.
And have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes.
And are you familiar with the land matters associated with these proposed spacing units?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Ms. Meredith be received as that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Nicole, let's start with L1, if you can go ahead and identify for us the proposed spacing units.
Sure. So the configuration we have here, the upper map shows the current spacing. We've got 5 1280 units, all of which are Oasis/Cord operated units that we are planning to reconfigure into 1920s. So as you can see, original unit 156, 102, 17 and 20, and 29 and 32, we are requesting to reconfigure into a 1920 of 17, 20, and 29. And then we've got section 32 of 156, 102, and sections 5 and 8 of 155, 102 that we are planning to reconfigure as a 1920 stand-up as well, being 32, 5, and 8. And then we are requesting a 3840 consisting of sections 16, 17, 20, 21, 28, and 29 of 156, 102.
Okay. Let's move on then to L2, if you can walk us through the working interest in the proposed spacing units.
All right, so the blue hatched 1920 represents Township 156, 102, sections 17, 20, and 29. The working interest Oasis represents there is 70.41. And just the southern 1920 stand-up being 156, 102, section 32, and 155, 102, sections 5 and 8, is a 74.56% working interest. And then we've got the overlapping 3840 being 156, 102, sections 16, 17, 20, 21, and 28 and 29 with a 70.41% working interest.
And moving on to L3, if you could take us through and highlight the working interest in those underlying base units.
Sure. The sections, I'll kind of go top to bottom here. In the blue, 1280, sections 17 and 20, we're shown with a working interest of 70.52. The red hashed box shows sections 16 and 21 of 156, 102 being a 98.83% working interest. We've got sections 29 and 32 of 156, 102 with a 70.18% working interest. The purple box is sections 28 and 33 with a 78% working interest. And then we move south into Township 155-102, sections 5 and 8 with a 76.75% working interest.
Okay. I have no further questions for Ms. Meredith. I'd offer the land exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Nicole, on your exhibit L1, sections in 156-102, 4, 9, and 16, and 21, 28, and 33 are currently stand-up 1920s. Is that correct?
I believe I'm looking at 9 and 16 as a stand-up 1280, and then I want to say 21, 28 are 640s. I hadn't seen that they had been respaced, but I could be wrong. I want to say 31, 32, 33 is a lay-down 1920. Are you speaking of 155, 102? I'm sorry, I might be in the wrong township.
Yeah, I'm talking about 156,
Okay.
102.
156, 102, I'm sorry.
So
Yes.
So 4, 9, and 16, 21, 28, and 33 are stand-up 1920s. And, of course, your proposal is off pattern, but we have established a pattern to the south, which this fits with. However, 4, 5, 8, 9, 16, and 17 are currently at lease line 3840. And 20, 21, 28, 29, 32, and 33 are lease line 3840. So your proposal would break those up. And then on the north side, between 4, 5, 8, and 9, there's obviously would be room for a lease line 2560. But on the south, in 155, 102, 8, 9, 16, and 17 are currently a lease line 2560, so that one would be broken up. But that would leave room for presumably a lease line to the south of there. Do you operate 4, 5, 8, and 9?
In 156, 102, yes, we sure do.
And so what is your plans for that lease line there?
So we currently have 4, 5, 8, or I'm sorry, 4, 9, 16, you're correct. Joyce is in 1920, just north of here. I'm not sure that we've gone that far north to determine whether or not or how we plan to handle that lease line well. At this point, it seems like trying to see and look at the map the correct way of what we have currently as a scenario. We've looked at respacing that 5 and 8 with section 35 just north of it in 156, 102. So there is a potential that we could capture that, western section line portion of 4, 9, and 16.
Okay, and then likewise to the south in 155, 102, 9 and 16, 17 and, 17, 20, and 29, are those Oasis operated units?
So we've respaced 17, 20, and 29. We actually did have on that same case a lease line well that would have captured section 16, 21, and 28. We had to withdraw that section line as we were in discussions with Grayson and EOG at the time. We have withdrawn the section 33, 4, and 9 as we are currently in discussions with Grayson and Mills on a potential trade opportunity. So I think there is a result there where we could come back in potentially June, July, and respace that 16, 17, 20, 21, 28, 33, as well as picking up the northern portion of this as well, the 33, 4, and 9.
Okay, and this, I don't know
So
if this,
there's still discussions to be had there.
yeah. I'd like you or in conjunction with one of your other witnesses to address that northern lease line 4, 5, 8, and 9 in 156, 102, and then likewise the south between 16, 17, 20, 21, 28, and 29. And file a supplemental exhibit.
Showing development plans, you mean? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah, the goal is to not or minimize stranding of any lease line area that can be developed. Okay, thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Nicole, this is Bruce Hicks. The commission does advocate for on-pattern 1920s such as 4, 9, 16, 21, 28, and 33. Why are you varying from that now?
In 156, 102?
Yeah, and you're continuing it down to 155, 102.
I think it's just a pattern of how we are able to space over our overlapping operated units without interfering with other operators in both of the townships.
4, 9, and 16, that is also yours, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So this would be off pattern compared to that development pattern. Are you planning on also changing the pattern to the east?
We've got some cases coming up on the next docket. I'm not sure. I believe it does impact cases further to the east where we are planning 3 1920 stand-ups as well as a 1920 laydown.
Okay, well, I still don't understand your 4, 9, and 16, and 21, 28, and 33. If you plan to drill on that pattern that could be repeated to the west right here, what's happening is eventually you're going to get to a point where you're going to go across a township line and possibly interfere with on-pattern development to the north or south. And it's going to mess the development pattern up.
Yeah, I think I can grasp what you're saying here. Part of it is what we've currently spaced as 1920s, and it's just attempting to remain on somewhat of a pattern for what we can actually overlap from an operator position. So we've spaced at 17, 20, 29 further south, as well as 18, 19, and 30, which, it's a domino effect more or less as when you start respacing in these areas.
Okay, well, the commission is not real interested in, one company just developing their own acreage. We want to make sure this is on pattern so we can develop the entire area on pattern, so to speak. But what is the timing on drilling?
For 17, 20, 29, and 32, 5, and 8, I believe we're looking at... Andrew, do you have the current timing available?
If somebody else is going to address this later, I'll just wait.
Yeah, I can talk timing later if we need to.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none, we'll move on to Ms. Lambert. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Randy, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
My name is Randy Lambert. I'm the Director of Geoscience at Oasis Petroleum, a subsidiary of Cord. Business address is 1001 Fannin, Suite 1500, Houston, Texas, 77002.
And Randy, have you previously testified before this commission?
Yes, I have.
Have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes, I have.
And are you familiar with the geology underlying the proposed spacing units?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Mr. Lambert be received as that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
Randy, let's start with G1, if you can describe your structure map for us.
Structure top of the Upper Bakken Shale, 10-foot contour interval over the lands we've been discussing, and I have the relevant 1920s and the 3840 proposed in different colored boxes, as well as calling out the location of the type log that we will see in a minute, illustrating the Middle Bakken petroleum system.
Okay. Let's move on to the ISOPAC map, Exhibit G2.
Okay, basically the same geographic area. We're looking at the gross interval thickness of the Middle Bakken in the petroleum system, and the relevant 1920s and 3840 highlighted by the colored boxes. Contour interval is 5 feet.
Okay. And then let's move on to your type log, Exhibit G3.
Okay, this is the Placid Oil Augusta number 1. Just representing the Bakken petroleum system with the Middle Bakken highlighted in yellow. Approximate thickness there is about 39 feet.
Okay, I have no further questions for Mr. Lambert. I'd offer the geology exhibits.
Exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none, we move on to Mr. McLean. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Andrew, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Yeah, Andrew McLean, employed by Oasis Petroleum, Cord Energy, 1001 Fannin Street, Suite 1500, Houston, Texas, 77002. I'm a development engineer.
And Andrew, have you previously testified before the commission?
Yes.
And have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes.
And are you familiar with the engineering-related matters associated with these proposed spacing units?
Yes.
I'd move the testimony of Mr. McLean be received as that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Andrew, let's start with Exhibit E1. Can you take us through your proposed development plan for that 1920 and also touch on the timing associated with that development?
Yes. So, so 17, 20, 29, and 156, 102, proposed 1920. Planning to drill through 3 wells. We had some existing wells to kind of work around. That's why you can see the deviation, the lateral. The timing for this one, we're still working through. We've also struggled with kind of how to develop this with the off pattern kind of spacing. So yeah, it's not a slam dunk. So this unit right now, it's probably going to be late 24 or later before we drill.
Okay. Then let's move on to the next 1920 E2 and address your development of that proposed 1920.
Yes, so section 32 and 156, 102, and section 5 and 8 and 155, 102. Those would be getting 3 miles, again, working around existing wells. And, sorry, three wells? We're working around the existing wells. And this is set to drill next year. Let me give you a better date. We're looking at kind of June or July right now for spud.
Okay. And then let's go ahead and move on to E3 then, the proposed 3840.
Yeah, so section 16, 17, 20, 21, 28, 29 are the 3840 that we're proposing in 156 North, 102 West. And frankly, this is just a miss on my part. The section that you mentioned earlier, the 3840 from sections 4, 5, 8, 9, 16, 17, that section line well is on the schedule to be drilled pretty quick. So I think we just need to continue this portion of the case and regroup. You're correct. We did not have this well thought out. The larger question about the pattern being off pattern, I would say, so to the west of
the two stand-up 1920s that we have in 156, 102, which are the northern, what I'm calling the Archer Field, section 4, 9, and 16, and then the Berwick, which is section 21, 28, and 33. So once we start moving to the west of that, surface locations and economics were kind of a big concern for why we have this off-pattern 1920. But as we, your comments, again, well taken, and I think we need to regroup internally.
And let's,
So Wade, if he wants to continue this 3840, should we just withdraw this one also?
well, Andrew, I want to make sure that I'm on the same page. So with respect to the 3840 consisting of 16, 17, 20, 21, 28, and 29, you still want to go forward with that and are requesting the establishment of that 3840, correct?
That doesn't, so with the, I'm getting an echo, that we are planning to drill the section line from the 3840 from sections 4, 5, 8, 9, 16, and 17. So that would interfere with the last mile of this 3840 that we're talking about.
So
on the section line between 16 and 17, that mile.
So and Mr. Bork can correct me if I'm wrong, I think he's asking if we would, since we've already withdrawn the 32, 33, 4, 5, 8, and 9, that 3840, would it make sense, or would Oasis want to withdraw this one as well and resubmit for June as well? Is that what you're asking, Mark?
Yeah, because he acknowledged that they're gonna drill the north one that exists pretty soon.
Right.
So they're gonna overlap.
Right. So, Andrew,
That's what I would.
Is that okay if we do that?
That's what I would propose. Yeah, let's continue this 3840 as well.
Well, what we'd be doing is withdrawing this 3840 from this case, and then we can reevaluate and refile for June, if that's the case, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
So apologies.
Yep, that's okay.
Wade, are you also wanting to withdraw the others so they're on pattern? The 1920s?
Well, if I can interject, the problem we have is to the south, Painted Woods already crosses the township line with 1280s. And we have established some 1920s down there that are off pattern because of that. And this column is just an extension of that going north. It's kind of like we may be too far down the road, I don't know.
If we may, I think, and I don't, Andrew, you can weigh in, but I think would we prefer to keep each of these 1920s requests, and then we've been asked to provide, a supplemental exhibit to address development to the north and south. And we can evaluate and submit something that, to the extent that we think we can satisfy the commission's concerns, we could do so.
I think based on the fact that both 3840s were withdrawn, that supplement is no longer needed.
Okay.
I just want to interject a little bit. As far as on-pattern 3-mile laterals, there's a way to drill these that you still have your energy corridors that have been set up, and by drilling in the middle, you do create a new one and kind of disrupt where pipelines are and travel and so forth. So the energy concept and corridors is really affected by off-pattern development on 1920s. And that should be taken into consideration also.
Yeah, point taken. I would like to keep the 1920s. Keep going forward with that spacing request for now, and we can continue on the 3840s.
Sure. Let's go ahead then and move on to E4. If you can walk us through the reservoir data and the economics for those proposed 1920s.
Sure. So, it's pretty, I think we've gone through something similar maybe in September for an adjacent unit, but initial reservoir pressure around 7,000 PSI. I'm going to skip down to original well in place is about 20.3 million with a density of about 4 wells. The total recovery factor is 15% of the unit for an individual well. With the pricing shown there, $65 per PO, $3 per MCF. You can see undiscounted ROI of about 2.15.
Okay. And I guess with the withdrawal of the 3840s, I think exhibit number 5, we don't really need to address that exhibit at this point. But Andrew, in your opinion, if the 1920s, if that request for that spacing is granted, in your opinion, is that going to prevent waste, protect relative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
Okay. I'd offer the engineering exhibits and the gas capture plan affidavit at this time.
The exhibits and affidavit are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Andrew, on Exhibit E1, are you planning on drilling all 3 of those wells from that single pad?
Yes.
Okay, and then moving on to E2, are you planning on using the existing pad that is down in 17, or are you going to have a new one for these 3 wells?
We were planning to use the existing pad.
Okay, and you're planning on drilling all 3 wells shown on E2 from that one pad? That also includes, I think it's 4 or 5 other wells?
Yes, we built the pad to allow for that additional development.
Okay, thanks.
Andrew, looking at Exhibit E1 and E2 kind of in conjunction, starting with E2, your easternmost well, proposed Middle Bakken well, how far off the section line are you planning to drill that?
I don't have that number in front of me, but just based on what I see for the Dreisbach well and section 32 being pretty tight to the east, we're probably going to be around that 550 mark from that line, in the section line.
Do you know what the rough interwell distance you're looking to achieve between those 2 wells is?
I don't have that.
With the proposal on E2 to drill that well east of those existing wells, why try to dive in on E1 and get between and to the west of that Dreisbach well? Why not just drill that to the east of both of the existing wells also?
Can you say that again?
So I'm back up on E1 and wondering why you're deviating that well to cut in between the 2 existing wells instead of just continuing it to the east of the existing wells.
Yeah, I'm not sure I have a good answer here. It's just a consistent approach. I don't know. No good answer for you there. Reservoir, so we still need to spend some more time doing the detailed engineering to see what would be the best in terms of ultimate recovery from the wells.
Okay.
So this is my kind of best first approach at what I think would work. And
So there's a chance that that well on the east in E1 would just drill the east side and mirror the well to the south?
Correct.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Are there any further questions from commission staff?
Wade, I don't recall, did you go over the gas capture plan?
Yes, I offered it.
Okay, Andrew, I'm looking at the gas capture plan, and I don't think it quite cuts what we want on it. Can you tell us if you have notified Highland of your gas production forecasts?
1 second. So we have been talking to Highland, and
let me go find a note on this. My impression was that they were starting to move that direction, to be ready for it.
Because all this affidavit says is that you anticipate that Highland will be able to gather all the gas. And actually in the affidavit, and you can work with Wade on this, but you need to be addressing that you've provided a forecast to Highland and also that you've developed a gas capture plan for the area. You don't need to resubmit it on this one, but in the future, would you please make sure that you've included those items?
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Any further questions from staff? Seeing none, I don't believe we needed a supplement anymore in this case. Was there anything further, Mr. Mann?
No, Mr. Examiner, not on this case, thank you.
And that will conclude the hearing in case number 29959. Moving on. Case number 29960, application of Oasis Petroleum North America LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Tyrone Bakken Pool, Williams County, ND, to establish 3 overlapping stand-up 1920 acre space units described as sections 12, 13, and 24, Township 156 North, Range 102 West, sections 7, 18, and 19, Township 156 North, Range 101 West, sections 8, 17, and 20, Township 156 North, Range 101 West, and authorize 3 horizontal wells to be drilled on each such unit. Establish 1 overlapping laydown 1920 acre space unit described as section 1, Township 156 North, Range 102 West, and sections 5 and 6, Township 156 North, Range 101 West, and authorize 3 horizontal wells to be drilled on such unit. Establish 2 overlapping 3840 acre space units described as sections 12, 13, and 24, Township 156 North, Range 102 West, and sections 7, 18, and 19, Township 156 North, Range 101 West, and sections 7, 8, 17, 18, 19, and 20, Township 156 North, Range 101 West, and authorize 1 horizontal well to be drilled on each such unit, or granting such other relief as may be appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Oasis Petroleum North America, LLC, and I have same 3 witnesses testifying in this case.
Ms. Meredith, do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
And Nicole, let's go ahead and start with exhibit number L1, if you can identify the proposed spacing units for us.
Sure. So what we've got here in the current spacing is 6 1280 stand-ups, comprised of Township 156, 101, Sections 5 and 6, Sections 6 and 7, Sections 17 and 20, and Sections 18 and 19. And then we'll go a little west to Township 156, 102, with Sections 1 and 12, and Sections 13 and 24. And then you'll see in the secondary map on this L1 requested spacing being comprised of Township 156, 101, Sections 5 and 6, Township 156, 102, Section 1. And then you have the 3 1920 stand-ups to south being comprised of Sections 6, 17, and 20 of Township 156, 101, Sections 7, 18, and 19 of Township 156, 101, and Sections 12, 13, and 24 of Township 156, 102. And then we have corresponding overlapping 3840s with the 3 1920 stand-ups.
Okay. And let's move on to L2, if you could address the working interest in each of the proposed spacing units.
Sure. So I'll start from left to right on the southern 1920 stand-ups. So we've got Township 156, 102, Sections 12, 13, and 24 with a 95.27% working interest. The red outlined unit is Townships 156, 101, Sections 7, 18, and 19, being 88.11% working interest. The purple outlined unit is Township 156, 101, Sections 8, 17, and 20, with a 67.91% interest. And then the green box represents the overlapping 3840 with 7, 18, and 19 of 156, 101, and 12, 13, 24 of 156, 102, being a 91.7% working interest. And then we have a rust-colored box that represents the additional 3840, being 156, 101, Sections 7, 8, 17, 18, 19, 20, with 78.01% working interest. And then just up north, we have the 1920 laydown comprised of 156-101, sections 5 and 6, and 156-102, section 1, with a 79.79% working interest.
Okay. And then moving on to L3, if you can touch on the working interest in the underlying spacing units.
Sure. This map represents the 6 underlying spacing units. Oasis does operate all 6 underlying spacing units. Sections 1 and 12 of 156-102, we're sitting at 92.93% working interest. Sections 6 and 7 of 156-101, we have a little over 80% working interest. Sections 5 and 8 of 156-101, we've got 65.89% working interest. And just south, we'll move to 156-102, sections 13 and 24 with a 96.44% working interest. 156-101, 18 and 19 is a 91.89%. And lastly, 156-101, 17 and 20 is 68.91% working interest.
Okay. I have no further questions for Ms. Meredith. I'd offer the land exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none. Mr. Lambert, do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
I do.
Randy, go ahead and start with G1 and take us through your structure map.
Yeah, G1 structure map, contour intervals 10 feet. Got the various 1920s and 3840s colored in the upper right portion of the map, and I'm using the same type log from the previous case. Augusta number 1.
Okay. Let's move on to G2, the ISOPAC map then.
Gross interval thickness for the Middle Bakken. Expect between 35 and 40 feet across this area. Same type log noted.
Okay. And then finally moving on to the type log.
Okay, same type log, about 39 feet of Middle Bakken highlighted in yellow. And this is focused on the Bakken petroleum system.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. Lambert. I'd offer the geology exhibits.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none, move on to Mr. McLean. You solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
All right, Andrew, let's go ahead and address the development of these proposed spacing units, starting with E1 and that westernmost, I guess, 1920.
Yeah, section 12, 13, 24, and 156 north, 102 west. Stand at 1920 with 3 wells in it, kind of working around existing development again.
Okay. And then let's move on to the next stand-up 1920, Exhibit E2.
Yeah, section 7, 18, and 19 in 156 north, 101 west. 3 wells in the proposed unit, spaced again around existing wells as shown.
Okay. And then E3, the next stand-up 1920.
Yep, so sections 8, 17, and 20 in 156 north, 101 west. Again, 3 wells in the plan here, spaced around existing development.
Okay. And then with E4, let's move up to the laydown 1920 to the north.
Yes, as you mentioned, section 1 and 156 north and 102 west, and sections 5 and 6 and 156 north, 101 west, right on 1920, just north of the 3 stand-up 1920s just discussed, showing 3 wells in the unit.
Okay. And then let's move down again to the 3840s, E5.
Yeah, so E5 kind of shows the 3840 comprised of the units in Exhibit E1 and E2. So Section 12, 13, 24 of 156 North, 102 West, and Section 7, 18, 19 of 156 North and 101 West with a single well in the section line.
Okay. And then let's move on finally to E6, the other 3840 you're requesting.
Yeah, this is for Section 7, 8, 17, 18, 19, and 20 in 156 North, 101 West with a single section line well.
Then let's move on to E7, if you can take us through the reservoir data and then the economics for the proposed 1920s.
Yep, so in the 1920, with assuming about a 4-well spacing recovery factor, about 15% of the unit from the original well replaced at 20.3 million barrels. So for a well EUR of 734 MBO, that gets us with the assumption of pricing shown of 65 per BO and $3 per MCF, so that's just undiscounted ROI of 2.15.
Okay.
And then in Exhibit 8, the 3840, it's essentially the same economics on the well basis with an undiscounted ROI of 2.15, just normalized recovery factor for the well and the size of the unit.
Okay. And Andrew, in your opinion, if these stand-up 1920s with the laydown across the top and the section line wells with the 3840s, if that gets approved for the development that you have described, in your opinion, is that going to prevent waste, protect relative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. McLean at this time, and I'd offer the engineering exhibits and gas capture plan affidavit.
The exhibits and affidavit are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Andrew, looking at your E4, your laydown, the existing wells in the underlying spacing units, are those all Middle Bakken targets, or do you have a mix of Middle Bakken and Three Forks targets in there?
I believe these are all Middle Bakken.
Okay. And your intent is to drill Middle Bakken with your laydown wells?
Yes.
Do you want to touch on how you plan to steer around the existing wells and complete in proximity to the existing wells?
Yeah, so our drilling team, they use the anti-collision report, and then as they're downhole, they use geosteering with gamma log in order to ensure they don't have collision, and then also do drill and frac protect.
So do you intend to blank any stages across the existing well point, or just frac?
We haven't gotten to that. Yeah, sorry, we haven't gotten to that part in the completion design yet. So far, we've tended to just do like active pumping or frac protect to protect the well in a similar circumstance.
So this might be for Andrew and or Nicole, but looking at G1, I'm going to use G1 just because it has all the sections I want to reference on it. Does Oasis operate 25 and 36 of 156-101? Or sorry, of 156-102? Immediately to the south of the westernmost 1920.
This is Nicole. Okay, so 156, 102, 2536, is that correct? We do operate. It's our Hendricks unit. It's fully developed.
Okay. So you don't plan to drill any additional wells on the west half of that? When you said fully developed?
Well, yeah, I guess I'm looking at my map. It looks like we do potentially have maybe unplanned wells there. I can't speak to timing on that, or if we do plan to go back in and drill a couple of wells in that western half.
Okay.
Well, we don't have anything like on our near-term schedule with that development.
Okay. 30 and 31 immediately to the east of that, is that a Oasis or is that a different operator?
I believe that's Lawson.
Yes, that's a different operator.
And then 29 and 32, or whatever that well, what is that? 32?
Yes, 2932. Yep, we operate that one as well.
But that one does look like it's fully developed, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. just getting back to the on pattern, if Oasis operated 30 and 31, would we be looking at two stacked 1920s instead of the laydown across the top?
Don't think we would do that in this case, just given that the rest of the development to the east of 30 and 31 is done. So we, try to take full picture of all of that acreage in mind. We would probably still end up with the same plan, and then 30 and 31 would end up at 1280.
Okay, so you would anticipate final development on 30 and 31 and 25 and 36 on 1280 regardless.
I can't speak for the other operators. I'm not sure what they would do, but I just can't see another scenario that works out.
Okay, thank you.
Where you end up using it at the 1920.
All right, thank you.
Are there any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none, anything further on this matter, Mr. Mann?
No, Mr. Examiner, thank you.
Then that will conclude the hearing in case number 29960. Moving on. Case number 29961, application of Ovintiv USA Inc. for an order amending the applicable orders for the Severson Tobacco Garden and/or South Tobacco Garden Bakken Pools, McKenzie County, ND, to establish two overlapping 2560 acre spacing units described as sections 13, 14, 23, and 24, and sections 14, 15, 22, and 23, Township 150 North, Range 99 West, and authorize one horizontal well to be drilled on each such unit. Establish three overlapping 2560 acre spacing units described as sections 1, 2, 11, and 12, Township 150 North, Range 99 West, sections 2, 3, 10, and 11, Township 150 North, Range 99 West, and sections 13 and 24, Township 150 North, Range 99 West, and sections 18 and 19, Township 150 North, Range 98 West, and authorize two horizontal wells to be drilled on each such unit, granting such other relief as may be appropriate. This case is continued to June. Case number 29346, application of Ovintiv Production Inc. for an order amending the applicable orders for the Lost Bridge and/or Bear Creek Bakken Pools to establish a stand-up 1920 acre space unit described as sections 10, 15, and 22, Township 148 North, Range 96 West, Dunn County, ND, and authorize 6 horizontal wells to be drilled on such unit and granting such other relief as may be appropriate. This case is continued to June. Case number 29896, application of Burlington Resources Oil and Gas Co. LP for an order amending the applicable orders for the Keene Bakken Three Forks Pool to establish an overlapping 2560 acre spacing unit described as sections 23, 24, 25, and 26, Township 153 North, Range 96 West, McKenzie County, ND, and authorize one horizontal well to be drilled on such unit for granting such other relief as may be appropriate. This case is continued to May. Move back to case number 29952. In the matter of a hearing called on motion of the commission to consider the termination of the lease line 2560 acre spacing unit in the Charleston Bakken Pool described as sections 35 and 36, Township 154 North, Range 95 West, and sections 1 and 2, Township 153 North, Range 95 West, McKenzie and Williams County, ND, and or alternatively establishing the south half of sections 35 and 36, Township 154 North, Range 95 West, and the north half of sections 1 and 2, Township 153 North, Range 95 West, McKenzie County, ND, as a lay-down lease line 1280 acre spacing unit in the Charleston Bakken Pool, and such other relief as is appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Petrohunt LLC. I'm going to have 3 witnesses in this case. Mike Lindsay, Land, is present in the hearing room, and then I'll need to call Dutch Cruz and Jason Stengel. And let me call them now.
Let him get everyone on the line here before he.
Dutch? Jason? All right, we're live in the hearing room.
Right, well, we'll turn to Mr. Lindsay. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
And Mr. Examiner, I guess before get into Mr. Lindsay's testimony, that just note that this was a hearing called on the motion of the commission to consider the termination of the lease line 2560 spacing unit. And Petro Hunt doesn't have opposition to termination of that 2560 per se, but it is their intention to drill a lease line well, and to the extent that that 2560, if it's the commission's wish to terminate that 2560, it would be Petro Hunt's request that the 1,280 acre spacing unit consisting of the south half of 35 and 36 and north half of 1 and 2 be established. I do have the testimony of Mr. Lindsay and the geology and engineering witness available to address establishment and justification of that proposed 1280, if that's the wish of the commission, and can kind of go through those exhibits now.
Sure. Yes, any comment from the commission on the path forward here?
No, I think it would be appropriate just to briefly run through the exhibits. I think we all are on the same page, so.
Sure.
Then we've already sworn in Mr. Lindsay, so.
Mike, can I just have you go ahead and state your name, by whom you're employed, and what capacity, and give us your business address?
Yep, Michael Lindsay. I'm a landman with Petro Hunt LLC. Address is P.O. Box 935, Bismarck, North Dakota 58502.
And Mike, have you previously testified before the commission?
I have.
Have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
I have.
Okay, and are you familiar with the land matters associated with the proposed, I guess the existing and what would be potentially be the proposed spacing unit?
Yes.
Okay. I'd move the testimony of Mr. Lindsay be received as that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Mike, if you could take us through exhibit number 1 and just identify the working interest in what would be, I guess, a 1,280 acre overlapping unit.
Yep, so Exhibit 1 is a track-by-track breakdown of Petro Hunt's working interests along with the other parties. Petro Hunt in this proposed 1281.28 acre spacing unit would be a 78.732% working interest in the entire 1280.
Okay. And that's all the questions I have for Mr. Lindsay. I'd offer exhibit 1.
Exhibit 1 is admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none, we'll move to Mr. Cruz. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
Dutch, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Yes, my name is Dutch Cruz. I'm employed by Petro Hunt LLC as a geologist, and my business address is 600 17th Street, Suite 2550 South, Denver, Colorado 80202.
And Dutch, have you previously testified before the commission?
I have.
Have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes, I have.
Okay, and are you familiar with the geology underlying these lands?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Mr. Cruz be received as that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Dutch, let's just walk through your exhibit number 2, if you can kind of take us through the structure and then also address what would be your proposed, development plan for this section line corridor.
Yep, so in this exhibit, we have the proposed 1280 acre spacing unit there in red in the middle, and then in the dash green is the old 2560 acre unit. And so on this map, I have the faint geologic contours in the back. It's the top of the Bakken, top of the upper Bakken shale. These are 50-foot contours, so we're just right on the east side of the Nesson incline. So this is pretty steeply dipping formation to the east. And the proposed well is dashed in black there, and I think the plan would be to drill this well as a first bench Three Forks well when we do drill it.
Okay. Then let's move on to Exhibit 3. If you could just walk us through that exhibit, that cross.
Okay, just
type
yeah,
log,
just to point out on that Exhibit 2, that the type log that I'm going to show in the next exhibit is circled there, kind of in that northwest side of Section 2 there. So that's where this type log is on Exhibit 3. It's just have a compensated neutron density log on the left and a resistivity log on the right, showing the lower part of the Lodge Pole, the upper, middle, and lower part of the Bakken, and then the upper portion of the Three Forks from that well, and it should be indicative of the Bakken pool kind of in this area. But nothing extraordinary to note. It's kind of a typical section.
Sure. With that, I have no further questions for Mr. Cruz, and I'd offer Exhibits 2 and 3.
Exhibits 2 and 3 are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Apologies if I missed it, but what was the intended target for the section line well?
It will be upper bench of the Three Forks.
Okay, thank you.
Dutch, do you know where this well is gonna be drilled from?
Yes, it will be drilled from, there's a pad over there in the southeastern or southwestern corner of Section 31. Our state pad, so it'll be coming from the east, being drilled towards the west.
Okay, and does Petro Hunt operate 2 and 11?
Yes, we do.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from staff? Seeing none. Mr. Stengel, do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Jason, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
I'm Jason Stengel, employed by Petro Hunt LLC as a reservoir engineer. My business address is 2101 Cedar Springs Road, Suite 600, Dallas, Texas 75201.
And Jason, have you previously testified before the commission?
Yes.
Have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes.
And are you familiar with the engineering-related matters associated with this, these lands, this proposed spacing unit?
Yes.
Okay, I move the testimony, Mr. Stengel, be received as that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Jason, with respect to exhibit number 4, I guess if the commission were to terminate the existing 2560 and a 1280 overlapping unit was established, can you take us through the reservoir data for that proposed 1280?
Yes, I will. Like you said, there's the reservoir data for this DSU that we're discussing. The lithology is going to be dolomitic siltstone. Bottom hole temperature is around 260 degrees Fahrenheit. Oil gravity 42.7 degrees API with gas gravity of 0.89. A GOR of 1,500. As mentioned, the spacing unit is 1,280 acres. The average thickness for the Three Forks in here for the first bench is 30 feet took off the log. Velocity is 10% again off the log. With a calculated average water saturation of 34%. We calculated the formation volume factor at 1.74 and got an estimated oil in place calculation of 11,190,179 barrels, standard barrels. We have an EUR of 800,000 barrels for an estimated recovery factor of 7.14%.
Okay, and let's move on to exhibit number 5. Can you take us through what the economics would look like?
Yes. For the economics, we have an initial production rate of 1,300 barrels a day, again with a GOR of 1,500 and an EUR of 800,000 barrels. Our projected well cost in this area is $9,538,740. with the estimated lease operating expense averaging $13,000 a month. Our royalty burden in this area is 17%, and then the oil and gas pricing, NYMEX pricing, $75 for oil and $250 for gas. With all those assumptions, the payout time is about a half a year, with a return on investment of 4.19 to 1 and a 154% rate of return.
And Jason, to the extent that the commission determines it's appropriate to terminate that 2560, Petro Hunt's not opposed to that, to the extent that they do in fact establish the 1,280 acre overlapping spacing unit for a lease line well that's been identified. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And in your opinion, Jason, would a 1,280 acre overlapping spacing unit for a lease line well, in your opinion, is that going to prevent waste and protect relative rights?
Yes.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. Stengel. I'd offer the exhibits 4 and 5.
Exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none? Anything further in this matter, Mr. Mann?
Not in this case. Thank you, Mr. Hearing Examiner.
That will conclude the hearing in case number 29952. Moving on to case number 29705, application of Petro Hunt LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Kittleson Slough Bakken Pool, Burke County, ND, to extend the outline and amend the applicable orders for the Kittleson Slough Field to include all of sections 19 and 30, Township 159 North, Range 91 West, and establish a stand-up 1920 acre spacing unit described as sections 19, 30, and 31, Township 159 North, Range 91 West, and authorize 4 horizontal wells to be drilled on such unit, and for such other relief as may be appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Petro Hunt LLC. I have 3 witnesses testifying in this case. Mr. Mike Dewald is the land witness. He's present in the hearing room. And then it will be Dutch Cruz and Jason Stengel again.
All right. Mr. Dewald, please raise your right hand. You solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Mike, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Mike Dewald, landman with Petro Hunt, address P.O. Box 935, Bismarck, North Dakota, 58502.
And Mike, have you previously testified before the commission?
I have.
Have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes,
Okay, and are you familiar with the land matters associated with the proposed spacing unit?
I am.
I'd move the testimony of Mr. Dewald be received as that of an expert.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Mike, let's go ahead and start then with exhibit number 1, if you can identify the proposed spacing unit and your working interest.
Yeah, so Exhibit 1 is a plat showing the proposed 1920 of 159-91, sections 19, 30, and 31. And we, Petro Hunt, has a little over 90% working interest in this proposed 1920.
Okay. Let's move on to exhibit number L2. Can you take us through that and explain what you're depicting here?
Yes, Exhibit 2 is a general locator map of the proposed 1920, and as you can see, it shows the relation to the Lost Wood National Wildlife Refuge. And one thing to point out on this map's a little bit older. The 1920 directly to the west of the proposed 1920. The map labels that wellbore there as Liberty. That is a permit Liberty has, and Petro Hunt recently took over that permit from Liberty, and the Form 15 has been submitted a couple weeks ago.
Then exhibit number 3, can just describe what we've got there.
Yes, Exhibit 3 is a letter from Liberty that is showing their support in favor of Petro Hunt in this application for the 1920 of 159, 91, 1930, and 31.
Okay, and that's all the questions I have for Mr. Dewald. I'd offer the land exhibits 1 through 3.
Exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Mike, I'm looking at your Exhibit 2. The southwest at 18, is that leased by anybody?
Southwest of 18? Not that I'm aware of. I don't know.
Did Petro Hunt consider including that in their spacing unit?
We have not.
Does the Lostwood National Wildlife Refuge allow any penetration of their boundary?
They do not. Acreage that is managed by the Fish and Wildlife Service, to lease their acreage, you have to prove drainage first.
If you look at Exhibit 2 down to the south end of the refuge, it appears one well goes down the edge of it and 2 wells cross into it. Do you know who operates those wells?
Which section?
We're looking at section,
Yep, those are operated by Petro Hunt. Those are ours.
okay,
And on that one, we drilled the 1H first, which is the easternmost well in that unit. And once drainage was proven, they put that acreage up for lease, and we leased that acreage up in that north half of Section 9. And I will point out, this map does show the surface outline for the Lostwood National Wildlife Refuge, but it's not the exact representation of the open minerals underneath it.
I'm just wondering if we're going to strand the southwest to 18.
So I do have a map for the open minerals under 18. And according to that, I'm showing the west half of the southwest is open fee acreage, or is fee acreage. I'm not aware if it's open or not. But the remainder of Section 18 would be open fed.
So the east half of the southwest is federal?
Yes.
Could you supplement the record with that information?
Yes, I can.
Thank you.
Any further questions from staff? Seeing none. Mr. Cruz, do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
All right, Dutch, let's start with exhibit number 4. Can you walk us through the structure map and also address what your proposed development plan would be for the spacing unit?
Yes, on this figure, I have the proposed drilling unit there in the middle in red, and have the structural contours in the same gray lines in the back. It's the top Bakken structure on 50-foot contours that's shown a regional dip to the southwest. I have the 4 wells kind of cartooned in there. I'm not sure we have come up with anything solid on the development plan, but it would likely be 2 middle Bakken and 2 upper bench Three Forks wells, and they're kind of alternating with our normal pattern right now. But again, this is, I think, kind of preliminary, so I wouldn't want to be locked down on that.
Okay. Let's move on to exhibit 5. Can you take us through the cross-section?
Yes, so on going back to the previous exhibit, I have the cross-section A to A prime in green there, showing these 2 wells here on the next exhibit. And I have, again, a compensated neutron density log and a resistivity log for both of these wells. And it's showing the lower part of the lodgepole, the upper, middle, and lower part of the Bakken interval, the pronghorn interval, which bends kind of up to the northwest, or up to the northeast, excuse me, and then the upper part of the Three Forks portion. And just to note, there is a bit of thinning up to the northeast because we are kind of here on the edge of the basin, kind of coming up out of the basin. So get a bit of thinning, but other than that, nothing too extraordinary to point out.
And Dutch, I should ask you as well, we are, as part of the relief, 19 and 30 currently are not within Kittleson Slough Field. We are asking that the field boundaries be extended to pick up 19 and 30, and that 19, 30, and 31 then be established as a 1,920 acre spacing unit. But in your opinion, Dutch, would the Bakken pool underlying 19 and 30 be part of the same common source of supply as that within 31 and the rest of Kittleson Slough Bakken pool?
Yes, it would.
I have no further questions for Mr. Cruz. I'd offer exhibits 4 and 5.
Exhibits 4 and 5 are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Dutch, when you discussed your targets, you indicated that you'd be potentially targeting the first bench of the Three Forks, correct?
Yes, we potentially target both the upper bench of the Three Forks and the Middle Bakken. I'm not sure if we would prefer to drill, all of them in one or the other, but as we have it now, it would be alternating between upper Three Forks and Middle Bakken target.
Okay. Can you give me an idea what your first bench target is below the top of the Three Forks? How many feet?
Yeah, it's usually on the type log, the A type log on the left side of my second exhibit there. The upper bench of the Three Forks is about 30 feet thick, and usually we like to stay kind of in the clean bench, the clean gamma ray bench right above that, so usually about 20 to 25 feet below the base of the shale, or the base of the pronghorn.
Okay, thank you.
Dutch, does Petruet plan to drill these wells from one pad?
Yes, I believe that would be the plan.
And would that pad
I don't know the details of the land and stuff, and I don't think that pad has been constructed, so I'm not sure if that's for sure yet.
Would that pad be on the south end?
Presumably, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions from staff? Seeing none? Mr. Stengel, do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Jason, let's start with exhibit number 6. Can you take us through the reservoir data for the proposed spacing unit?
Yes, the reservoir data for the 1920 we're discussing. Let's run through it quickly. Once again, the lithology is going to be a dolomitic siltstone. Bottom hole temperature is around 270 degrees. Well gravity is around 43, with the gas gravity of 1.03. The GOR is a little different here, 700 cubic feet to barrels. Again, the spacing is 1920. Looking at the Middle Bakken here, 35 feet thick up the log. The average porosity, 8.5%. Calculated water saturation is 55%. The formation volume factor is 1.53 to 1.53 reservoir barrels, standard barrels, and calculated oil in place is 13,033,440 barrels. The EOR for these per well, the EOR for these wells per well is 450,000 barrels, and the estimated recovery factor is 3.4%.
Okay. Let's move on to exhibit number 7. Could you take us through the economics?
Yeah, the economics, again, this is all per well. The IP here would be 600 barrels a day, again with the GOR of 700 cubic feet to barrels. The estimated recovery is 450,000 barrels. The estimated well cost of $12.9 million with an average expenses of $17,000 a month. The royalty burden in this area is 19%, again with a $75 NYMEX, $2.50 gas price. With all that said, the payout time is 5.35 years with a return on investment of 1.38 to 1 at 10% rate of return.
And Jason, in your opinion, what establishment of this 1,920 acre spacing unit, is that going to prevent waste, protect relative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
I have no further questions for Mr. Stengel. I'd offer the engineering exhibits and the gas capture plan affidavit.
The exhibits and affidavit are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Jason, this is Bruce Hicks. The 10% rate of return is not very high. Are you looking for better oil prices before this is drilled?
I think we'd go ahead and drill the well. The plans got started with higher oil prices, and currently oil prices are lower, but we're optimistic.
And would you batch drill all wells at the same time then?
That's the initial plan right now, yes.
Have you thought about drilling or permitting a well up into the south half of 18 like you did on the lower end? When I talked to Mike, of course, on the lower end of the Lost Wood National Wildlife Refuge, you've drilled across the boundary because you drilled, adjacent to the boundary of the refuge. Have you contemplated a 3.5-mile lateral doing the same in this area?
We have not.
Is that something that you would want to entertain?
I guess we could go back and discuss it. We were just trying to stay on pattern with the 1920. Some discussion that we've had internally is maybe talking about doing a lease line well on the east, but that hasn't progressed further than just some internal discussions. But no, we can go back and talk about a 3.5-mile well if you would want us to.
Well, I did ask for a supplement, and Mike is going to submit that. Feel free to list any cons or reasons why you should not be adding the southwest to 18. We'd be interested in that. Thank you.
Are any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none? Yes, there was a request for some supplements there, Mr. Mann.
Yeah, would a week be good for, or do 2 weeks be better? So I think that would be May 10th, maybe?
May 10th? Yep, that looks right. So Wednesday, the record will remain open till May 10th for supplement. All right, anything further in this matter, Mr. Mann?
Not on this one. Thank you, Mr. Examiner.
All right, and that will conclude the hearing in case number 29705. Moving on, case number 29841. Temporary spacing to develop an oil and/or gas pool discovered by the Petro Hunt Dakota LLC, 3-9 Hagen Well, file number 15013, at the southeast quarter of the northwest quarter, sections 9, Township 148 North, Range 102 West, McKenzie County, ND. Define the field limits and enact such special field rules as may be necessary. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Thank you, Mr. Examiner. Wade Mann, P.O. Box 2798, Bismarck, North Dakota, appearing in this case on behalf of Petro Hunt LLC. I'll have 3 witnesses testify in this case. Land witness, Mr. Justin Vanderlinden, is present in the hearing room, and then it will be Dutch Cruz and Jason Stengel again.
Mr. Examiner, Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, appearing in this matter on behalf of Rocky Top Energy LLC. No witnesses.
Oh. Let's try that one more time.
Okay, try again. Lawrence Bender, P.O. Box 1855, Bismarck, appearing in this matter on behalf of Rocky Top Energy LLC. Rocky Top does not intend to call any witnesses.
Thank you. All right. Well, Mr. Mann, we can begin with your first witness. Was it Mr. Vanderlinden?
Vanderlinden.
Vanderlinden. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes.
That's fine.
Justin, can I have you state your name, by whom you're employed, in what capacity, and give us your business address?
Yes, Justin Vanderlinden. I'm employed by Petro Hunt LLC as a landman. My business address is P.O. Box 935, Bismarck, North Dakota, 58502.
And Justin, have you previously testified before this commission?
Yes, I have.
Have you had your qualifications received as that of an expert?
Yes, I have.
And Justin, are you familiar with land-related matters associated with this temporary spacing hearing?
Yes, I am.
Okay, I'd move the testimony of Mr. Vanderlinden be received as that of an expert in this case.
Any objection?
No objection.
The testimony will be received as that of an expert.
And Justin, this case is a temporary spacing case. It's docketed as a result of Petro Hunt Dakota having production from the 3-9 Haugen well, which there was a 320-acre drilling unit that was established, and now you have production, so we're here for the temporary spacing. Is that your understanding?
Yes.
Okay. And Petro Hunt Dakota will be requesting that the 320-acre spacing, that be the appropriate spacing for the Haugen 3-9 well, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And that well, it's located within the current field boundaries of Boxcar Butte Field, is that correct?
Yes.
And there wasn't current Madison spacing in place for that field, is that correct?
That's what I'm, believe, yes.
And so now we're looking at potential, like, spacing of the Madison pool within the confines of that Boxcar Butte Field, is that correct?
Correct.
So with respect to what Petro Hunt is going to be requesting or recommending, apart from the 320-acre existing spacing, which is the north half of 9 for that Haugen well, Petro Hunt will be requesting and recommending that the remainder of the Madison pool within Boxcar Butte Field be spaced as to 160 acres, is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. And are you familiar with the letter filed yesterday, April 25th, 2023, by counsel for Rocky Top, I believe it's Rocky Top Energy LLC?
Yes, I did review it.
And they indicated that they are requesting, I believe, 160-acre spacing for what would essentially be the remainder of the lands within Boxcar Butte Field, is that correct?
Yes.
And Petro Hunt has no opposition to that?
We do not.
Okay. So their recommendations, to your understanding, are consistent with what Rocky Top is requesting?
Yeah, it's consistent with what we're requesting as well.
Sure.
Yep.
Okay. Let's go ahead and move on to the exhibits. What we've got marked as exhibit number 1. Can you walk us through that exhibit?
Yes, Exhibit 1 is a general locator map showing the existing producing wells within a 1-mile radius of the Haugen 3-9 well, and the associated production therefrom.
Okay. Then go ahead and move on to exhibit number L2. Just take us through what Petro Hunt's interest is in that, I guess currently is a drilling unit.
Yeah, we just are showing the working interest breakdown. Petro Hunt Dakota has a 54.019% working interest. The other large owner in that is Iron Operating LLC.
Mr. Examiner, that's all the questions I have at this point for Mr. Vanderlinden. I'd offer those first 2 exhibits.
Any objection?
Considering the direct testimony, I have no questions.
The exhibits are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none, we'll move to Mr. Cruz. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Dutch, can you go ahead and take us through exhibit number 3, kind of walk us through the structure, Madison Pool structure underlying, I guess what's the unit for that Haugen 3-9 well, but also sort of the surrounding lands within the Boxcar Butte?
Yes. In this exhibit, I have the that 320 acre spacing unit highlighted there in red, and I have all the offset wells around it. The structural contours on this map are on top of the Freiberg gamma ray marker, and they're 10-foot contour intervals, so you can kind of see a structural ridge there in the middle, kind of trending northwest to southeast. And then the color that is underlaying the structure map is a cumulative thickness within this Freiberg porosity, which you'll see on my next tide log map. I'll point out that porosity thickness, but that's just kind of a sum of these 2 little porosity intervals. So where we have the yellow color is more porous, and where it's the darker green, it's less porous. So just pointing out that we have the porosity on top of a structural ridge kind of right there corresponding with that north half of section 9.
Okay. Go ahead and move on to Exhibit 4 then.
Okay, and Exhibit 4 is a compensating neutron density, a resistivity, and the mud log for that Hagen 3-9 well that is of interest. This is showing kind of the faint line there near the bottom half is the top of the Freiberg gamma ray marker, which I have that's flattened on and kind of showing the log character on either side of that. Highlighted in red is where this well is perfed. So you can see it's kind of perfed on two little porous intervals, or relatively high porosity intervals that also correspond with some total gas spike on the far right on the mud log. So just showing the interval of interest and where that production is coming from.
Okay. And Dutch, for purposes of the drilling unit, the Madison pool was defined as the accumulation of oil and gas found in the interval from below the base of the last Charles Salt to above the top of the lodge pole. In your opinion, is that the appropriate Madison pool definition going forward?
Yes.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. Cruz at this time. I'd offer Exhibits 3 and 4.
The exhibits are admitted.
No questions.
Any questions from commission staff?
Dutch, looking at your exhibit 4, at least the copy I have is going to be a poor scan into the case file. Can we get a digital copy of this submitted?
Yes.
Okay. And
Of
then
the figure or just the log?
just exhibit 4 digitally at a better scale, so it'll go into the PDF well file better than a scanned copy will.
Yes.
And then looking at that exhibit, I think you mentioned the Freiberg line. I think I see that where that is. It's about 98, call it 16 feet on this well, correct?
Yes.
Okay. You have another line marking its label as MSNC above that, just below 9750. What's that one?
Mm-hmm. That's Mission Canyon.
And your perforations are above the Freiberg marker, so they'd be Mission Canyon formation, correct?
I mean, the Freiberg is a marker within the Mission Canyon, so yes, it would all be Mission Canyon technically.
Do you have an interval or subinterval that you're targeting, or you're calling that?
I mean, internally we're calling this the Freiberg interval within the Mission Canyon, I guess.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any further questions from staff? Seeing none. Mr. Stengel, do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Jason, let's go ahead and start with Exhibit number 5 and kind of walk through the appropriate Madison Reservoir data.
Yes, I just want to start off. We did do an oil, water, gas analysis, and that's been since submitted to the well file. And a lot of the data came from that analysis. So, with that said, Bruce Formation Madison, Mission Canyon, the perforations, as you saw previously, was 9791, 9798, 9806, and 9811. Static bottom hole pressure is measured at 3432 psi at 9791 feet. Gas oil ratio is 1400. Net pay average porosity is 11%, with a net pay thickness of 7.5 feet. The calculated water saturation is 36%. Formation volume factor is 1.93. Bottom hole temperature here is 260 degrees. Resistivity of the formation water is 0.04 ohmmeters. Oil gravity is 38.9 with a 4 point of 39 degrees Fahrenheit. reservoir drive mechanism here, solution gas drive. Calculated bubble point pressure is 4,610 psi. The estimated drainage area off of Dutch's porosity map is 107 acres. Solvent says it calculated original oil in place is 227,000 barrels with an estimated recovery of 8.4% and estimated ultimate recovery of 19,220 barrels.
Let's go ahead and move on then to exhibit number 6 in the economics.
This is for the economics of the workover or the recompletion that we had done. The recompletion cost was $212,000. Our average operating expense is $7,300 a month. The royalty burden of 14%. Estimated oil price is $72. We're currently flaring the gas here, so there's no gas price. Initial gas rates 7.5 MCF per day. Initial oil rate was 11 barrels a day. With all that said, the discounted net present value at 8% discount factor is $90,000. The payout time is just under 3 years. The return on investment is 1.76 to 1. The rate of return of 24%. The disposition of blue is the oil is being trucked to Concord, the gas is flared, and the water is being trucked to Aquaterra's SWD facility.
And then let's move on to exhibit number 7.
And number 7 is the production history and projection of the Madison production. You can see the wells produced 4,700 barrels to date, with a remainder of 14,000 barrels to come, with a total EUR of 19,000 barrels.
And then, Jason, just to confirm with, we kind of addressed it with Justin, but as far as any recommendations with respect to temporary spacing, Petro Hunt is seeking that the north half of 9, 148, 102, that be established as a 320 acre spacing unit for that Haugen 3-9 well. But with respect to the remaining lands within Boxcar Butte Field, that the Madison pool be spaced with as to 160 acres. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that any appropriate standard field rules for Madison spacing for those lands be adopted?
Yes.
And in your opinion, Jason, would that prevent waste, protect relative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
Okay, I have no further questions for Mr. Stengel. I'd offer exhibits 5 through 7.
Exhibits 5 through 7 are admitted. Questions? No questions. Any questions from commission staff?
Jason, does Petro Hunt have any plans to either recomplete any additional wells or drill any additional wells in the pool at this time?
No, not at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Wade or Lawrence, I think Lawrence, your letter referred to that they were gonna request 2 wells per 320.
I may have misspoken in there. I thought it was a 320 because the well was located so close to the quarter line, and typically what the commission does in those situations, it doesn't require 2 wells to drill, but it allows 2 wells. But Rocky Top has no recommendation with respect to that.
So is Petro Hunt requesting 2 wells?
Jason, we're not, right? Is it just a single well in that 320?
Just a single well, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Jason, this is Bruce Hicks. Does your gas contain any H2S?
I don't know. I have to follow up with that.
So has the health department given you any guidance on flare stack height or anything?
I have to follow up with that.
Okay. The well has sold oil in the past, it you know, from the Duperow, Bird Bear, and Red River. Was there any attempt, is there any appreciable gas after you're using it on lease?
Sorry, could you say that one more time?
Yeah, I was wondering if there was any appreciable gas. If you have a gas line to the well site already, is it economic to connect it? If it's producing H2S, probably not. But if it's a matter of just installing a meter, possibly it would be a revenue source. I was just wondering if you had looked into that.
I have not.
Okay, well, if you could just address that and then send in a supplement. And then we would want to know if there is any H2S in the gas, if you would just mention that in the supplement.
Yeah, it's part of the gas analysis. I just don't have it in front of me. But it's in the raw file, but I'll follow up with it.
Okay, thank you.
Bruce, just for note, it is in North Star, the recent gas analysis test that is submitted, and there's a 2% or 2 mole percent hydrogen sulfide in the recent.
Okay,
analysis.
well, that's not in the case file, and I would like for them to supplement it and just note that. Thank you.
Any further questions from commission staff? Seeing none, I guess there was a request for a supplement.
Yeah, Jason, I think the previous case we have until May 10th. Is that enough time or for supplemental?
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
Your record will remain open until May 10th for a supplement. Yes, anything further in this? Further in this matter, Mr. Mann?
No, Mr. Examiner.
All right.
Thank you.
For Mr. Bender either, so that will conclude the hearing in case number 29841. Moving on, case number 29837, application of Petro Hunt LLC for an order for the Keene Bakken Three Forks and/or Carlson Bakken Pool to establish an overlapping 3840 acre space unit consisting of sections 20, 21, 28, 29, 32, and 33, Township 153 North, Range 95 West, McKenzie County, ND, and authorize the drilling of one horizontal well on or near the section lines between the existing space units of said proposed overlapping 3840 acre space unit, and granting such other and further relief as may be appropriate. Will all interested parties please come forward?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Tom Throne, P.O. Box 6590 in Sheridan, Wyoming, appearing on behalf of Petro Hunt. I have Mike Lindsay for land, Dutch Cruz for geology, and Jason Stengel for engineering, the same witnesses you have heard. And Dutch and Jason, are you still on the line?
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, we'll just go ahead and continue to use the same line rather than call in on the other number.
So, Mr. Lindsay, we'll swear you in one more time. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes. Mike, would you please state your name, address, and employment, and by address, work address for the record?
Name is Michael Lindsay, a landman with Petro Hunt LLC. Business address is P.O. Box 935, Bismarck, North Dakota 58502.
And you've testified today previously as an expert in petroleum land matters,
Yes.
and you're familiar with the lands that are subject to this application and also the companion application by Burlington, aren't you?
Yes.
I would ask that Mr. Lindsay be accepted as an expert witness in petroleum land matters.
So, yes, the testimony will be received as an expert, and since we've received the expert, or all of your experts previously, we don't need to swear them.
Well, I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
Okay, starting with Exhibit 1, would you please explain the lands that are subject to this hearing today, and also the lands that are subject to the companion case that we're objecting to?
Yeah, so this is an index map overlaying Township 153, Range 95. Our proposed spacing unit is sections 20, 21, 28, 29, 32, and 33. The companion case space proposed unit is sections 28, 29, 32, and 33. Also 153.95 highlighted in red is our proposed.
And the other 4 sections you're talking about is the application of Burlington for a 2-mile lateral, correct?
Correct.
And in this application, Petro Hunt is asking that the 3-mile lateral be approved and the 2-mile lateral not be approved, correct?
Correct.
Moving on to Exhibit 2, would you explain the contents there?
Yeah, so Exhibit 2 is a track-by-track breakdown of the working interest parties in each sections 20, 21, 28, 29, 32, and 33. In the proposed 3840 acre spacing unit, Petro Hunt has a working interest of a little over 23%.
And are you familiar with the working interest ownership of Burlington in the larger spacing unit?
Yes, I'm showing them with a 8.47%.
And are you familiar with the working interest ownership in the proposed 2-mile lateral for 28, 29, 33, and 32?
Yes, they had shown in the 2-mile Petro Hunt with 20.80% and Burlington with 11.94%.
And Petro Hunt owns a larger working interest under either configuration, don't they?
Over Burlington, yes.
Now, would you explain to the commission in short landman terms why Petro Hunt is applying for the 6-section 3-mile lateral?
Yes, the 3-mile lateral, or the 2-mile lateral would strand strand sections 20 and 21 of 153.95. Therefore, drilling of an unnecessary well, I guess.
Okay.
Without, yeah.
And Jason will address that further.
Jason will address that, you're right. Jason Stengel.
I have no further questions from Mr. Lindsay and ask that Exhibits 1 and 2 be admitted into the record.
Exhibits 1 and 2 are admitted into the record. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Mike, as you referenced, we have a case before us, 29780, that was presented by Burlington, and now you want to overlap that. Have you had conversations with Burlington?
Yeah, basically chatting with them on us wanting to do a 3-mile versus their 2-mile.
So how is the commission to enter a decision in this when we have 2 open applications?
I believe in Petro Hunt's application, they asked that you deny the 2-mile lateral and approve the 3-mile lateral.
There's something in the record for this?
The application itself should state that, the application that Petro Hunt filed. We can put it on the record.
Well, if it's in the record, that's, but.
Wouldn't it be?
Yeah, yeah. In the conversations that Petro Hunt has had with Burlington, Burlington said they wanted the commission to decide whether it's a 2-mile or a 3-mile lateral.
So Burlington.
So disapprove one of them is what Burlington's position was.
So Burlington has entered nothing in the record for this case?
Not that I'm aware of.
Tom, was Burlington noticed on this case? Did you notify them that this was on the docket?
I didn't notify them, but I believe Petro Hunt talked to them beforehand. Yes. I did not send them a copy of the application.
So the application does refer that Petro wants Burlington's case denied. So did Petro appear in Burlington's case?
We did not.
And Burlington doesn't appear in Petro Hunt's case.
And I believe it's, under my impression is that they want the commission to make a decision, a 2-mile versus 3-mile.
Would be nice to hear that from Burlington.
I can't speak for them.
Well, it's frustrating when the 2 operators come to the commission without either one appearing in the other case, and then Sid just tells the commission, well, you make the decision. Obviously, we have to deny one of them. So I guess we'll take that under advisement.
Mike, can you tell us why Petro Hunt didn't appear in Burlington's case?
I don't have any answers. I don't know if we caught it. I mean, I'm not sure if we knew about the hearing. I mean, I guess I can't.
And was Burlington aware, or did you contact Burlington and tell them
I just know-
which case was on the docket?
Yeah, well, I have to go back and look, but I'm pretty sure with them letting us know that they'd like the commission to make the decision, they would know about our hearing. I guess I'd have to go back and check on that.
Thank you.
Would it be, Mike, could you approach Burlington and have them submit something into the record for this case?
Yeah, I can contact the contact I've been talking to over at Conoco.
Either whether they still want the commission to make the decision, or they're gonna withdraw theirs, one or the other.
Yeah, I'll follow up with them on that.
Okay, thank you.
Do I just submit that to you then?
Yeah, submit it to me, and then I'll submit it to the commission. I have a follow-up question from Mike. I believe you told me that you had had some conversations with the landman at Conoco. Is that correct?
Correct.
And you had advised her that Petro Hunt was filing this application, right?
I'd have to go back and double check, but
Didn't your counsel suggest that you try to work out an agreement with Conoco before we had this hearing?
yes, and that's where we came up with the commission making the decision on spacing.
Okay. And so you did contact Conoco to try and work out an agreement with them before we went through this
I
process?
believe so, yeah.
Are there any further questions from commission staff?
Mike, you had indicated that your working interest is greater in the 2560, and also in your proposed unit is greater than that interest that Burlington has. Do you know if your interest in supporting partners is greater than Burlington's interest in supporting partners in the two units?
So,
Are the other working interest owners supporting you in this application?
We
This
haven't.
other application?
I haven't made contact.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further questions from staff? Seeing none, I will move on to Mr. Cruz.
Dutch, you there?
Yes.
And you realize you're still under oath?
No, I'll swear him in again, but
Oh,
you can
swear me.
question him as an expert. with us.
Okay.
So, I'm going to swear you in one more time, Mr. Cruz. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
And the testimony can be received as an expert.
Okay, okay. For the record, state your name, work address, and occupation for the record.
My name is Dutch Cruz. I'm a geologist for Petro Hunt LLC. My work address is 600 17th Street, Suite 2550 South, Denver, Colorado, 80202.
Okay, and your testimony is being recognized as that of an expert. Starting with Exhibit 3, would you please explain the contents of that map?
Yes. Again, the proposed six-section spacing unit is in red with the proposed section line well drawn in black there. I have the busy figure, but have all the existing wells offsetting this area. Bakken wells in brown, upper bench Three Forks in that purple color. And underlaying the map, I have the top of the Bakken structural contours at 20-foot contour interval, and just showing kind of a slight dip to the southeast on the structural contours.
And the proposed unit is outlined in red?
Yes, that's correct.
And what is your target zone for the proposed well?
This well will likely be drilled as an upper Three Forks, the first bench Three Forks well.
Okay, and where will the well pad be located?
The well pad will be located in the southeastern portion of section 17 to the north on our Clevemoen Trust pad. There's an existing pad there, so it will be drifted to the east and then drilled from north to south along the section line.
And so there would not be any additional surface disturbance if this application is approved?
That is correct.
Okay, and I think you mentioned it, but I might have missed it. You have the type log circled on your Exhibit 3?
Yes, the type log is highlighted there in the western portion of section 21, which I'll show in the next figure, a log from that well.
Okay, go to Exhibit 4 and explain that. Exhibit?
Well, actually, two logs from that well. It's we have a compensated neutron density log on the left and a resistivity log on the right, showing the lower portion of the lodgepole, the upper, middle, and lower Bakken intervals, and then the upper portion of the Three Forks. And nothing extraordinary to mention. I would say that this log character would be indicative of the Bakken pool over the entire DSU.
Okay, and again, remind the commissioners, or the staff, the target zone for this proposed well?
The target zone will be in the upper portion of the Three Forks, so probably 20 or so feet below the base of the lower Bakken Shale.
Okay, and in your opinion, as a geologist, if this application is approved, will it prevent waste, protect relative rights, and prevent the drilling of unnecessary wells?
Yes.
I have no further questions for Mr. Cruz and ask that Exhibits 3 and 4 be admitted into the record.
Exhibits 3 and 4 are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff? Seeing none, we'll move on to Mr. Stengel. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under the penalties of perjury that the testimony you're about to give in this matter will be true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief?
Yes, I do.
Okay, Jason, would you please state your name and address for the record and for whom you are employed and in what capacity?
Jason Stengel. I work for Petron LLC as a reservoir engineer. Business address is 2101 Cedar Springs Road, Suite 600, Dallas, Texas 75201.
And are you personally familiar with the lands that are subject to this hearing today?
Yes.
And his testimony is accepted as that as an expert?
Yes, they are. Yes, it is.
Okay, starting with Exhibit 5, would you please describe the contents of that exhibit?
Yes, this is the reservoir parameters for this spacing unit. Biology is dolomite, bottom hole temperature 260 degrees, oil gravity 45.6 degrees API, gas oil ratio 1500. The spacing unit is 3,840 acre unit. Average thickness off the logs 32 feet for Three Forks. Average porosity 13.5%. Average water saturation 28.7%. Formation volume factor here is 2.01. The estimated oil in place, original oil in place is 45,545,728 barrels. The estimated ultimate recovery for this well, being 3 miles long, is 1.2 million barrels. And that's a recovery factor of 2.6%.
And have you had occasion to analyze the various economics of a 1 mile, 2 mile, and a 3 mile lateral?
I have, and that will be my Exhibit 6.
Would you please discuss it with the staff?
Yeah, so this is well economics, but there's also a sensitivity on there. I mean, the well we're discussing would be the 15,000 foot lateral economics, but also the 5,000 and 10,000 foot well sensitivity. The parameters have compared as the well length, IP, GOR, EOR, well cost, operating expense, royalty burden, oil in place, gas price, or oil price and gas price, and of course their payout times and return on investments. The reason we're asking for this extended length lateral for the 3 miles as opposed to 2 miles, this is a prevent waste reason.
generally, one well will be cheaper to drill than 2 wells and actually deliver a better return on investment overall. So the first line item I'd like you to look at to illustrate this would be the projected well cost. Looking at it, the 5,000-foot well is going to cost us $7 million to drill. 10,000 foot would be $9.5 million to drill, and the 15,000-foot lateral would cost $12.6 million to drill. So drilling 1 well as opposed to 2 wells, 5,000 to 10,000-foot lateral will be a more efficient use of capital. It only costs us $12.6 million versus close to $16.5 million total. I'd like to look at the ultimate recovery. I think that 3rd mile scales linearly. You're going to produce all the barrels equivalent to both the 1 and the 2 mile. So, of course, 5,000-foot lateral drain 400,000 barrels, 10,000 foot would drain 800,000 barrels, and we think the 3 mile well will drill 1.2 million barrels. Below that, I'd like to highlight the return on investment. The return on investment also scales upward with lateral length. For 5,000 feet, it's 2.71 to return. The 10,000 foot is 4.09, but the 15,000 foot lateral has the best return on investment, 4.63. And if you were to sum that up, total return on investment, the 3 miles still holds. And to save you the math, the 1 and the 2 mile return on investment would be $57 million, $57.9 million, where the 3 mile would be $58.7 million. So it's a better return on investment. It's lower capital cost, and I think you're draining all the barrels. So again, this is a prevent waste calculation, and I think the 3 mile well would prevent the most waste.
This would be a clear example where you're preventing the drilling of an unnecessary well by authorizing the 3 mile lateral, isn't it?
Yes.
And how is Petro Hunt going to protect correlative rights if this application is approved? By producing the oil in 20 and 21, correct?
I'm sorry, 1 second. Yes, it will prevent waste and protect all rights.
Okay. I have no further questions. Have we attached a gas capture affidavit to our set of exhibits?
It should be Exhibit 7.
Okay. I have no further questions for Mr. Stengel and ask that the exhibits 5, 6, and 7 be admitted.
Exhibits 5, 6, and 7 are admitted. Are there any questions from commission staff?
Jason, this is Bruce Hicks. Looking at Exhibit 6, you're showing your initial production rate the same on a 2 mile versus 3 mile lateral. Why is that?
Facilities. You're hitting into a facility constraint.
Okay, and if I was an investor, why wouldn't I want to get a higher rate of return? Drilling the 2 mile laterals, you're showing 148% rate of return versus 119 for a 3 mile.
Rate of return is not necessarily the sole metric you look at. At these rates of return, it's pretty clear no matter what you do is commercial. At that point, you're going to start looking at other aspects to it, like maybe total capital cost, total return on investment, and what the variance of payout or what the variance is on the rate of return. The rate of return specifically is a little lower for the 3 mile because you're facility constrained. It pays out, I think, maybe 1 month slower than the 2 mile. So you would start focusing on other aspects, and it's so ridiculously commercial to begin with.
Your return on investment, is that based on any type of deduction on percent, or is it just money versus money.
It's just money versus money.
Okay, so if you're not taking into consideration the cost value of money on your return on investment, and you want to, shouldn't you be looking at rate of return? There is a cost of money, right?
Yes. So you really, I mean, for us, we're the rate of return's really like a minimum, not necessarily a maximum. Like, do these wells clear our hurdle rate? Yes, they're very clearly commercial wells. So now we kind of start looking at other aspects of the economics beyond just rate of return. And for practical purposes, you can look at the payout time. You're talking about, 0.15 years difference between payout, which would be on a scale of like single-digit months, less than 2 months.
And when you're talking about
payout time is not necessarily a major factor here.
Okay. When you're talking about your production rate, you said that was due to your facilities constraints, right? What are the constraints that you have? Total fluid can't be greater than that, or what?
Yeah, our facilities have a total fluid maximum of 2,400 barrels a day. That's just kind of our standard facility. So our IPs generally are limited to 2,400 total fluid barrels a day. And that limitation only lasts for, a month or two before the well declines.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any further questions from staff? Seeing none. There was a I guess, did you have anything further that you wanted to ask, or?
Yes, Mr. Lindsay has found some business records that indicated about his conversations with Burlington, and I would like for him to put that into the record.
If you want to question him on that, we can.
Okay. Mike, have you located some evidence of your conversations with Burlington?
Basically, what I've found was just an internal message from me to the coworker regarding this case, and it had mentioned that I'd spoke with the Conoco land negotiators, see if they're willing to drop their 2-mile lateral case. Said, sounds like they will not protest our hearing in March, because originally this was scheduled for March, and we continue it to April. And we'll let the commission decide which spacing unit to use, their 2-mile or our 3-mile. So that's what I found so far. I just want to make sure I'm standing corrected on what I'd said originally, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd still
Yeah.
request the submittal, hopefully, well, because if Burlington doesn't withdraw, we have to write an order denying their application, and then just soon not do that if they're willing to withdraw it.
And I'll contact them after this.
Yep, thank you.
Do you still want a letter from Burlington for the record?
Correct.
Okay, we can make that request, but give us some time to encourage them to write the letter.
Sure. What kind of time frame do you think you'll need for?
How long? 2 weeks? Week?
Yeah, week or 2 weeks is fine. I'll be contacting them right after this, so.
So I guess for the rest of the other cases, I think it was May 10th that we were doing,
Okay,
so.
let's do May
stay in
10th.
line.
That works.
All right, the record will remain open until May 10th for that supplement. And with that, I guess, is there anything further on this matter, Mr. Throne?
No.
And that will conclude the hearing in case number 29837. Moving on.
Okay, thank you, Dutch and Jason.
Case number 29903. Application of Phoenix Operating LLC for an order amending the applicable orders for the Rossbakken Pool, Montreal County, ND, to establish an overlapping 1920 acre space unit described as sections 35 and 36, Township 156 North, Range 90 West, and section 31, Township 156 North, Range 89 West, and to authorize 5 horizontal wells to be drilled on such unit, terminate two 112 80-acre space units consisting of sections 35 and 36, Township 156 North, Range 90 West, and sections 31 and 32, Township 156 North, Range 89 West, and granting such other relief as may be appropriate. This case is dismissed. And that will conclude the hearings for April 26th.